And we are live for week 12. How's it going, everyone? It is the best day of the week. It is time to lock in, make sure we're getting into the fantasy playoffs, setting ourselves up for success in the fantasy football playoffs. How are we doing, everyone? It is a fantastic week 12 slate we have ahead of us. Year 5, week 12 of the Sunday morning live. Seriously grateful for you all, especially all of you already in the live stream here early in the AM on this week 12 Sunday morning. It is going to be a fantastic day. It's going to be a great live stream. We got a ton to get through today, so we're going to jump right into it. We're done with the international games. I mean, we are really in the home stretch of the season, guys. We're 3 months in. Let's go, man. This is a really difficult start sit week. So I'm going to try to get to as many start sits as I humanly possibly can. We are going to get my favorite anytime TD plays on the live today. We're going to get my DraftKings lineup today. Really interesting DraftKings slate. I got 3 free player props on the day. We're going to talk through every single game, every single relevant player in every single game like we do every single week. We're going to have Samps on the live in a few hours, get his takes for the week. It is going to be a great day and a great week. All right, let me pull up the QB ranks here, and we will get into the game-by-game segment. Again, I want to try to get to as many comments as I possibly can today, so we're going to go through the game-by-game segment a little faster, I think, than usual on the live today. Let's start out with this Chiefs-Colts game. Chiefs are favored by 3 points, 3.5 points now at home in this game. Absolute must-win game for the Chiefs. They're at 5-5. They're a loss away from being near out of the playoff hunt. I mean, they really need a win here. With this spread, the Colts would be about even at home, or maybe even favored at home based on this spread. The Colts are going to be able to keep pace, I think, with the Chiefs in this game. Rashee Rice ranks as wide receiver 1 this week. We've seen multiple wide receiver 1 rankings for Rashee Rice in the WalterPicks app this season. It's coming off a pretty down game against the Broncos. Still had 6 catches in that one, though. 9 targets, 21% target share. Haven't seen a 30% target share yet for Rashee Rice this season. Still averaging, though, 19.3 points per game. Now he gets the Colts. The Colts have not been very good at stopping receivers this season. They did upgrade the secondary at the trade deadline, but still got to have a ton of confidence in Rashee Rice. We're not benching Pat Mahomes today. Travis Kelce has slowly become a bad do not draft player for me this season, coming off his best game of the season last week against the Denver Broncos. 9 for 91 and a touchdown. He had a 30% target share in that game. He's now up to tight end 5 in points per game this season. Absolutely no benching Travis Kelce right now. He's got a real shot to finish as a top 3 tight end, top 4 tight end. We'll see where Tyler Warren ends up finishing. Some of the more difficult start sits in this game, though, Kareem Hunt, not an easy call. There's no Pacheco again in this one. He's had at least 12 points in 3 straight, scored a touchdown in 3 straight. He played 80% of the snaps last game, did Kareem Hunt for the Kansas City Chiefs. He had a 93% rush share, but that was only 13 carries. I mean, the Chiefs are not going to lean on the run in these must-win games. I'll pull up the running back ranks here, seeing some people ask for that. Top over to the running back ranks, see where Kareem Hunt ranks. There, definitely some very difficult running back starts. I think the receiver position is the most difficult. Now, I assume we'll see some Xavier Worthy start sits today. I actually like Xavier Worthy. I think a little bit more than where we have him ranked today, but the floor is definitely low. I mean, we've seen him go for 6 points or less in back-to-back games now. Have not seen a boom game from Xavier Worthy all season. That includes, I mean, he missed the first 3 games with injury, but that includes 2 or 3 games here without Rashee Rice. His best game was his first game of the season back in week 4. I do think there's a potential boom game coming for Xavier Worthy in this spot, though. I'm okay starting Xavier Worthy in this tough start sit week 12 week. there's at least a good ceiling here. One of the higher projected scoring games of the week here. And that's pretty much the end of the list of the fantasy relevant guys here for the Chiefs. By the way, the Chiefs are, I'm going to say this every Sunday morning live now through the rest of the season. This is one of the defenses I really think is worth stashing. If you can afford the bench spot, which I know is tough through these buys, but if you're already locked into the fantasy playoffs, or you already even have a bye, if you have a bye in the fantasy football playoffs, you've got to have the Chiefs on your team, man. They get the Titans in week 16. That is going to be a playoff winning week here from the Chiefs defense. I'm stashing them in multiple leagues where I'm able to do so with deeper benches. On the other side of this game, the Indianapolis Colts come into this game tied, I believe, for the best record in the NFL with the Pats. Jonathan Taylor, I think, was a pretty interesting sell high candidate around the fantasy football trade deadline. You don't need to sell Jonathan Taylor. He's easily the number one player in fantasy football this season. I mean, the advance rate in best ball, guys, if you drafted Jonathan Taylor on your best ball team, it's like 60% of the teams with Jonathan Taylor are advancing in best ball right now, which means they finished top 2 in their leagues. But the schedule is going to be tough here down the stretch for Jonathan Taylor. He gets the Chiefs today, Texans next week, Jags, Seahawks, Jags again. He has 4 bottom 12 matchups for running backs. 3 of those are bottom 7 matchups. One of those is today. Obviously, the role is still going to be strong. You're never benching Jonathan Taylor, but I don't think it's too unlikely for someone else, some other running back, to finish as the running back 1 rest of season over Jonathan Taylor. We have him at running back 4 here in week 12. Tyler Warren, I still think, is a pretty sneaky candidate for the offensive rookie of the year. People are writing him off just because he plays tight end. But I think he's got a decent chance at it. I think he's second or third in the odds. He's actually still really close to Brock Bowers' numbers from last season. Really not getting talked about enough. Daniel Jones, a bit of a riskier start than usual. QB 13. He's pumpkined a little bit the last couple of games, under 17.5 points in back-to-back games. Much tougher matchup, but he's coming off the bye. Should be a high-scoring game environment. Every week with Daniel Jones, does he score a rushing touchdown or get at least 2 passing touchdowns? If he does, he's going over 20 points. If he doesn't, he's going under 20 points. Michael Pittman's still a guy you kind of need to start, even in a tough matchup. Alec Pierce continues to be one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL. He's an if you know kind of guy. I mean, the true ball knowers know Alec Pierce is a legit NFL wide receiver who plays a really specific role. The air yards are just so strong. Second in air yards per game this season from Alec Pierce. The only receiver averaging more air yards per game than Alec Pierce is Malik Neighbors, who has not played in over a month. Man, I mean, truly an elite role here for Alec Pierce. A very, very underrated player, both in NFL and fantasy terms. Hop back over to the wide receiver list, seeing people ask for that. Again, really tough start sits this week, I think, at wide receiver. Alec Pierce, add him to that list of guys you can consider in your wide receiver 2/3/flex this week. Josh Downs, he's in my must bench list this week. I don't see how you feel good about starting Josh Downs. There's not really a ceiling for Josh Downs. There's like a hopeful floor. We have seen him go over 10 points in 4 of his last 6 games, 4 of his last 5 games that he's played. But there's just not a legit ceiling. I mean, the ceiling for Alec Pierce is not even really comparable to the ceiling for Josh Downs. He's not playing every snap. He's out there 50 to 60% of the snaps in a slot role. You could do worse than Downs, but I'd much prefer to bench him this week. I think there's some other sneaky receiver options this week. Guys like Jalen Coker and Xavier Legette, I'd start over Josh Downs this week, for example. If I'm starting Coker and Legette over you, you're a bench. You're just a must bench. All right, that's the Colts-Chiefs game here. I do think the Chiefs pull this one out, but man, it should be a close game. This should be a really fun one. Another week, by the way. This is another week. There's a couple games that are pretty lopsided spreads, but most of the games today are within a 4 or 5 point spread. I mean, it should be a lot of good competitive games today. This one's at home for the Chiefs, though. Basically a playoff game here for the Chiefs. I rarely, over the last 4 or 5 years, in betting against the Chiefs in playoff games. All right, next game here is the Steelers versus the Bears. I'm going to get to tons and tons of start-sit comments on the live, I promise. Let me know what positions you guys want to see rankings-wise. I'll pull those up. And once we get through the game-by-game portion, if you do have start-sits relevant to the game I'm talking about too, send them in the chat. I will loop some of those in as we get going here. This Steelers-Bears game, I think, is a pretty sneaky, fun game. There's 2 big pieces of injury news we're waiting on here in Week 12. This is really one of the first slates all season where there's like a couple big pieces of injury news we are waiting on that are true question marks. One of them is in this game, Aaron Rodgers, who I believe is a wrist injury for Rodgers. Yeah, wrist. He's pushing to play. It doesn't sound like the medical staff thinks he should play. Aaron Rodgers known to be a little bit anti-medicine. So we'll see if he gets out there or not in this game versus the Bears. I think we're leaning towards in right now. We do have him projected in. We do have him projected as QB 14 because it's a good matchup here versus the Bears. I don't want to start Aaron Rodgers, though, guys. I don't think you can start Rodgers or plan to start Rodgers. I don't think many people are. I'm not sure how much Aaron Rodgers sitting really impacts this team. I think it's probably a downgrade for Metcalf. This is a really good spot for DK Metcalf. I mean, this is a week we should be starting DK Metcalf, but Rodgers has a wrist injury. It's going to be Mason Rudolph in for Rodgers if he doesn't play. Will Howard is the backup. Will Howard is not going to be a good NFL QB, I don't think. He did win the national championship last season with Ohio State. But it might be really more of a lateral move here for DK Metcalf with Mason Rudolph. Metcalf has been much more boom bust than we'd want. Hasn't had a game over 10 points in 3 straight weeks, but this is a pretty good matchup here for Metcalf, so I understand wanting to start him. Jaylen Warren's a must start this week here versus the Bears. Kenneth Gainwell is also startable as like a back-end running back 3. He had 7 catches last week. I mean, it's like Christian McCaffrey type receiving role for Jaylen Warren last week. 7 catches, 81 yards, 2 TDs against the Bengals, though, so we got to take it with a grain of salt. But we've now seen Kenneth Gainwell in both games that Jaylen Warren has been hurt this season. Kenneth Gainwell has been a top 5 running back in fantasy. These are the handcuffs you want in fantasy. Not a must start, obviously, but definitely worth holding on to. We're starting Warren, and I think you can start Metcalf. Everyone else pretty much needs to be benched on this side of the game. The Chicago Bears now. Caleb Williams. I'm going to have to start him in one of my leagues. I think he's startable this week against the Steelers. A little bit scary against the Steelers defensive line. But Caleb Williams should have a good chance at some passing yards today. The Steelers are allowing the most passing yards per game in the NFL this season. They've been a lot better the last couple of weeks. They held Herbert at 220. Flacco only had 199 last week. But the floor here for Caleb Williams is like 12 to 15 points. There's a near 30-point ceiling in this game too. The other reason I'm excited about Caleb Williams is Luther Burden is going to continue to play more. And Luther Burden has been the most efficient wide receiver for the Bears this season. He did cash the free player prop for us last week in the first half. Didn't even see any of the catches on Red Zone. If you're watching Red Zone, did not see a single Luther Burden play in the first half. Check your phone. At halftime, he's already at 2. They set that line at 1.5 last week. We were all over that. He played over 40% of the snaps for the second time all season. He had his highest target share of the season, 5 targets last week. And the coach speak this week suggests it's going to be an even bigger role for Luther Burden this week. His props have adjusted, which I agree with. His props are like at 35.5. Now, I like Luther Burden this week as a sleeper, guys. I think I have him on as one of my sleepers of the week. I'll pull back the wide receiver rankings here. You're going to have to kind of force it with Luther Burden a little bit in a lot of start sits, which I'm okay doing if you're going for a ceiling, but you don't need to force Luther Burden into your lineup here in week 12, depending on the options that you have. We have him ranked as wide receiver 35, so like a back-end wide receiver 3. He does rank ahead of DJ Moore for the first time all season. His prop lines, guys, are above DJ Moore's here in week 12. Pretty crazy to see, but that's the world we live in. And again, Luther Burden has been really efficient on a per route basis. He's at 2.7 yards per route run still. He was only at 1.2 last week, but that's still like really up there with the top route run players this season. Up there with Jalen Waddle and Zay Flowers. He's not over 3 anymore with JSN and Puka, though. Monungai I have as a bench this week. I think Adunze is an absolute must start here in week 12 against the Steelers with how bad they've been against receivers for most parts of the season. DeAndre Swift is a start. He's really reclaimed. He never really lost. I mean, he missed a game. He never really lost the lead back role. Still playing over half the snaps. He had 21 carries last week. He's got the receiving role in the backfield too. The Bears have been really, really effective running the ball this season. Colston Loveland. I assume we're going to get some Colston Loveland questions today. I understand the appeal with Loveland, but Kmet's playing a huge role too. They both played over 70% of the snaps last week, did Kmet and Loveland. I think he's not a free player prop today, but I do like Cole Kmet's receiving line over at 11.5 yards is where I saw it on multiple books. He had 5 for 45 last week. He's playing over 70% of the snaps, and the Steelers have not been good versus tight ends. So I do like the Cole Kmet line. And I understand the Loveland ceiling. I'm okay playing Loveland in a lot of spots. Today, yeah, we saw Tanner Hudson go over 11.5 yards last week. He had 22 yards on 3 catches. Noah Fant and Tanner Hudson combined for 8 catches, 58 yards last week. I mean, that's definitely a good sign here for Loveland and Komet. But yeah, man, it's hard for me not to get pretty excited about Luther Burden here. He's not going to be a free player prop because they did adjust the lines, but you guys know I've been really high on Luther Burden all season. This is going to be the biggest role of the season for Luther Burden. I mean, it's pretty exciting stuff. All right, let's get to, I'll pull up the running back, seeing some people ask for those. I do like the Bears in this game with the Rodgers injury stuff. The Bears are 3-point favorites at home here. The Steelers' defense has been a really tough one to pin down. You know, one week they are an elite defensive line. The other week they look like the worst defense in the league. You never really know which side of the Steelers defense you're going to get. But yeah, I do like the Bears to win this one. So I've taken the 2 favorites so far, Chiefs and Bears. All right, on to the Patriots-Bengals game. It seemed like for a while this week, we might actually see Joe Burrow play this week. He had 2 full practices this week, but he's not going to go. It's going to be Joe Flacco again. And we're starting to see Joe Flacco come back down to earth a little bit in the last one game against the Steelers. He's still averaging almost 20 points per game in his starts with the Bengals. I think more than 20 points per game. Still had 40 pass attempts last week, but there's no Jamar Chase in this one. He's coming off his worst game of the season with the Bengals, and now he doesn't have Jamar Chase. It's probably the most difficult matchup he's had all season too with the Bengals. Not an amazing spot here for Joe Flacco, who ranks as QB 15 on the week right now. Chase Brown ranks as a top 10 running back. I'm honestly a little nervous for Chase Brown with how good the Pats' run defense has been. The Pats are allowing 3.4 yards per carry this season. Guys, that'd be the highest or the best run defense in terms of yards per carry in the last 5-10 years. We don't see defenses allow 3.4 yards per carry to running backs. They did soften a tiny bit against Breece Hall and the Jets in their last game, but the 2 games ago, actually, and Sean Tucker, I think, actually did well against them too. Let's take a look at their matchup tab here. But Chase Brown's in an elite role right now. He might lead all running backs in snap percentage this week. Samaje Perine out again. Yeah, Breece Hall was at 4.1 yards per carry. Isaiah Davis was at 5.5. Sean Tucker was at 5.9 yards per carry. So we have seen some efficiency. And Chase Brown's coming off some of his best games. But yeah, he played 82% of the snaps last week. I mean, there's very few running backs averaging over 80% snap share. In the first game where Samaje Perine went out, he was at 96%. We talked about this on the Week 11 Sunday Morning Live. I believe it was Taj Brooks that got a little bit of that Perine role. Yeah, he had 5 rushing yards. He played 10% of snaps. He had 1 carry. So maybe we see Taj Brooks mix in a tiny bit, but Bengals are also underdogs in this game. Should be a good receiving role here for Chase Brown. T. Higgins ranks as a top 5 receiver, even in a pretty tough matchup against the Pats with no Jamar Chase. I really don't want to force Andre Yoshivas this week. I know we're going to get Yoshivas questions today. There's a bunch of receivers I'd prefer over Yoshivas. I honestly think I would prefer the Panthers number 2, number 3 receivers, Coker and Leggett over Yoshivas this week. I feel pretty good about Bryce Young on Monday night against that 49ers pass defense. And you're not starting the tight ends here in this game. And then for the Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson is back this week. I got the running back ranks up right now. I still don't know how we bench Trevion Henderson here in week 12. Part of the reason I've been advocating to buy Ramondre Stevenson and Trevion Henderson basically all season, even when Henderson was doing poorly, even when Ramondre got hurt, is this schedule down the stretch here, guys, is absolutely unreal for the Patriots running backs. If you come to the YouTube live, if you're watching live on TikTok, we got the game logs up on screen. I can share screen on the YouTube live, a little bit of a better viewing experience. And there's no way there's a better running back schedule rest of the season than what the Patriots have. They get the Bengals this week. That's the number 1 matchup for running backs. They get the Giants next week. That is the number 2 matchup for running backs. Then they get the bye, and then they get the Bills, which is the number 4 matchup for running back. They have 3 top 4 running back matchups in their next 3 games. And then they get the Ravens and the Jets to end the fantasy season. Those are also both top 12 running back matchups. I mean, it really does not get better than this. So even with Ramondre Stevenson back, with how well Henderson has played, he's been a top 4 fantasy running back in back-to-back games. He has 4 touchdowns his last 2 games. I don't see how the Patriots don't give Henderson more work than Ramondre in this game in Mondre's first game back. And then you get the Bengals where he could easily rip off an 80-yard touchdown here versus the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, we've seen running backs just absolutely annihilate this Bengals defense. So yeah, Henderson, I think justifies the ranking, top 10 ranking this week. I just don't think there's a spot, a realistic start sit today that I'm going to see where we can talk ourselves into benching Trevion Henderson. Every single week, we're seeing at least one running back over 20. We've seen multiple 30-point games here versus the Bengals. Hunter Henry is a pretty interesting tight end option against the Bengals too. The Bengals also rank dead last versus tight ends this season. So they're dead last versus running backs, dead last versus tight ends. Hunter Henry did have, I think, 5 catches. Last week, 4 catches for 45. Hasn't had a touchdown since week 8. I think he's got a pretty good chance to score here in week 12. I know I see some people in the comments asking for my favorite touchdown scores. Those are in the bottom of the YouTube right now. We have been cashing on these. I think we went over 60% again on these touchdown plays last week. We'll get to the free player props here coming up momentarily. Guys, if you're just tuning in, smash the follow button if you're watching live on TikTok. Hit the like button if you're watching live on YouTube. Do appreciate it, guys. We are just getting started here. The Patriots are 7-point favorites in this game. They have had the easiest schedule in the NFL this season. They almost had a tougher matchup here in playing Joe Burrow, but ends up being Flacco and no Jamar Chase. I mean, somehow the Pats schedule just gets easier. We're not benching Steph Diggs. Kayshon Boutte is back in this game, which makes me say you really can't start any of these other receivers on this team. You can't start Boutte. You can't start Hollins. You can't start Douglas. You can't start Kyle Williams. All of these guys have a really, really low floor in this game, especially if they're able to lean on the run. Drake May projects as QB2. The Bengals are second worst against QBs, worst against running backs, worst against tight ends. They're like middle of the pack against receivers. Got to feel decent about Drake May. Flacco can keep this game close at all. Do like the Patriots to win in this one too. This game is in Cincinnati, and the Pats are 7.5-point favorites. Wow. I've come around, by the way. I know I've been advocating for Drake May, MVP Drake May on this live. I still think he's got a good case for it. But, guys, it's going to be Stafford. It's going to be Stafford that wins MVP. I think Stafford's it has the name value with the voters that May doesn't have. May really has to outperform Stafford by like a decent margin. And also in these final games of the season are going to be super important. I think the Pats are going to be able to lean on the run in a lot of these games too, as we just discussed. All right, on to the next game here. We got the Jets against the Ravens. This is a very interesting spot, and one of my free player props is going to come from this game, and it's going to come from the Jets side of this game. So there's no Justin Fields today. They're benching Fields. They're putting in Tyrod Taylor. I think this could actually be kind of a big deal for the Jets offense. I mean, Justin Fields has not been able to throw all season, just incapable of sustaining a legitimate passing offense. There's no Garrett Wilson still, but maybe Tyrod Taylor can give them like a league average or slightly below league average passing attack where they can like complete some passes. The last game he played, he completed 26 of 36 pass attempts. That was a 72% completion percentage. He ended up throwing for just under 200 yards, 2 TDs in that game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the Jets are 14.5-point underdogs, 13.5-point underdogs in Baltimore today. And there's no hope for the Jets defense to stop the Ravens offense. Just absolutely no hope. These are the exact type of game environments where Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry just absolutely shred. And they're not going to be stopped. But I think the Jets offense has like a little bit of hope to sustain some drives today. Breece Hall ranks as a top 12 running back. You pretty much have to start him this week. But I also think one of these receivers between Adonai Mitchell, John Mechie, Isaiah Williams, all three of these guys had like a pretty significant role last week. A.D. Mitchell played only 49% of the snaps, but he had a 23% target share. Isaiah Williams for the Jets, he had a 73% target share. 73% snap share, 15% target share for Isaiah Williams. And then John Mechie, who is the one I'm most excited about today, he played 83% of the snaps, led receivers in snap percentage, only an 11% target share for him, 3 targets, caught all 3 of them for 45 and a touchdown. The Ravens play a lot of man coverage. And all 3 of these receivers, A.D. Mitchell, Isaiah Williams, and John Mechie, have done way better in man coverage over the course of their careers and this season than zone coverage. And now they finally have like a legit throw over the football. Last week it was Fields, and this week it's Tyrod Taylor. So yeah, I think one of these receivers, Mechie, A.D. Mitchell, Isaiah Williams, is a pretty interesting DFS play. And I do like the John Mechie over receiving yards. That is one of the free player props today. Over 24.5 receiving yards for John Mechie, I think, is a pretty sneaky one that could get hit in the first drive. Like this, and none of these receiving lines are going to be out of reach all game because they're going to be trailing. They're going to need to throw. So yeah, I do like the Jets, sneaky receivers there. In deeper leagues too, I think they're all interesting dart throws. Mason Taylor ranks as tight end 12 this week too. He's not in the best matchup here versus the Ravens. I'd prefer to go elsewhere at tight end, but for all the same reasons I was just saying for those receivers, I mean, he should have some reasonable role here in week 12. You could do worse. There's a floor there at least for Mason Taylor. I think the Jets cover here. They're 13.5 point favorites, 13.5 point underdogs, but there's like almost no world where the Ravens offense isn't putting up 30 plus today. So I love Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. I think Lamar honestly ranks a little bit too low for us this week. I think part of it is we're baking in the risk that there's just not much throwing for the Ravens because it could just be a huge Derrick Henry spot. But we've seen, I think it was that game versus the Dolphins, Lamar's first game back. He only threw the ball. Yeah, he only had 18 completions, still threw 4 touchdowns. So we could see something like that here for Lamar against the Jets. It's been under 17 points in back-to-back spots. I think he gets back over 20 today. We haven't projected 19.8, which I think is a little bit on the floor side here for Lamar Jackson. I don't think I'm playing Stafford over Lamar if I have to make that call, which I do think we have Stafford over Lamar right now. Stafford's in a really good spot this week too. Mark Andrews is definitely an interesting tight end option this week too. He ranks as tight end 8. He's got a 16% touchdown rate. This season, at least 3 catches in 3 of his last 4 games. He's had at least 10 points in 3 straight games. He had a rushing touchdown, a 35-yard rushing touchdown that sealed the game last week. Skewed that a little bit. Isaiah Likely continues to be kind of an interesting sleeper. I'm playing at least one DFS lineup with the Lamar Likely stack. I think Derrick Henry is pretty interesting in DFS too. We're starting Zay Flowers this week. And Keaton Mitchell, if this game gets out of hand, definitely has a decent chance to have a role in a touchdown. I do like the Keaton Mitchell touchdown today. All right, on to the next game here with the Seahawks and the Titans. This is another big spread. So we've gotten through the 3 big spreads here. There's actually 4 big spreads with Giants and Lions, Seahawks, Titans, Jets, Ravens, and the Pats, Bengals, if you want to call that a large spread too. But let's go to the Seahawks team. Shout out to everybody in this live stream right now. By the way, if you're just tuning into the YouTube live, guys, smash the like button. If you're watching live on TikTok, hit the follow button. If you guys have not checked out the WalterPicks app yet, I really do not know what you're waiting for. We're getting towards the back end of the fantasy season here, and you are actively not trying to win your league if you haven't tried out the WalterPicks app. And if you're into player props like me, every single Sunday, Thursday, Monday, and we got even more days. We got a Friday game upcoming this week. Then you got to try out the WalterPicks app for that too, because it is a cheat code for player props. I've already shared one of my free player props on this live, and that is John Mechie over 24.5 receiving yards. I do like that line today for the Jets game. All right, let's get to the Seahawks here. JSN, I think there's a pretty good argument to rank JSN as wide receiver 1 overall this week. We have him down at wide receiver 4 because there's some really good wide receiver spots this week with Puka, Amon-Ra, and Rashee Rice all ranking ahead of him. And because of the spread here for the Seahawks, might not be a very pass-heavy game script, but the Titans have been crushed by outside receivers this season, and not a single team, guys, has been able to stop JSN. I mean, these game logs are just beautiful from JSN. It does not get more beautiful than this. 21.8 points per game, leads the NFL in receiving yards per game. He has 1 game under 20 points since week 3. He has 1 game under 18 points all season. I mean, just a masterclass this year from JSN. I mean, there's a real argument. He is the best receiver in the NFL right now. And there's some legit elite receivers he's contending with for that. AJ Barner had a pretty big game last week. I wouldn't expect him to repeat that. 10 for 70, 10 catches, 70 yards for AJ Barner versus the Rams. Makes me like Cade Otton a bit this week. He ranks, I believe, as tight end 5 or 6 for us. Really tough to bench Cade Otton after looking at these AJ Barner game logs against the Rams. Rams defense is so strong. They've been a bit soft against tight ends. 10 for 70 for AJ Barner. Played 87% of the snaps. This was the biggest role of the season for AJ Barner. Don't expect him to repeat that here, though. In week 12, really not a guy I'm forcing into the lineup. I know a lot of people are excited about Kenneth Walker this week. Picked up a glute injury on Friday or Saturday. He picked this up. He's coming off his best game of the season with 20 points. The coaching staff saying they got to get him the ball more. But guys, Zach Charbonnet is not going away. I still think there's like a little bit of a scary floor for Kenneth, but we know the ceiling is there. This is a good matchup against the Titans. So yeah, we're starting Kenneth Walker here in week 12 with a decent amount of confidence. Let me pull up the running back ranks here again. Guys, shout out to everybody in this live right now. We're just getting started. I'm going to get to a ton of start sits today. I know there's some really, really difficult start sits here. I'm seeing AJ Barner versus Theo Johnson in the chat as an example. And yeah, I'm going Theo Johnson there. Just talking about AJ Barner. I think you got to bench AJ Barner, even with the big role last week. I have a feeling that was a little matchup dependent. This game could skew pretty run heavy too. And the Titans have been best against tight ends across all positions. So yeah, I'm okay benching AJ Barner here in week 12. The Seahawks defense, by the way, they rank as defense 1 for us in the WalterPicks app. If you got the Seahawks defense, you should be feeling very, very good about that. They've been one of the most underrated defenses in the NFL this season. They've had some great fantasy games. The Seahawks guys are averaging the most fantasy points per game across all defenses, and they get the best matchup this week against the Titans. They don't have an amazing rest of season schedule, but they do project pretty good against the Vikings next week too. They project as the number 2 defense for us in the look ahead rankings there in week 13. So yeah, the Seahawks should be startable in the next couple of games. Zach Charbonnet, I think he's a desperation running back play here in week 12 too, but he's going to still have a role, guys, and he's got a pretty good chance at a touchdown here versus the Titans. We did miss the Woody Marks prop last week, despite him having his largest touch total of the season in week 11 against the Titans. Just was not an efficient day for Woody Marks. Fell like 15, 20 yards short of his total line. Titans run defense did look better last week from what they've been this whole season. On the Titans side of this game, Calvin Ridley out for the season. That was absolutely one of the roughest series of injury events that I've seen in recent memory. Calvin Ridley misses most of the season, comes back instantly broke his fibula, I believe. We'll see where he lands in the offseason, but he's out. We also have Imanor is out this week as well. So they activated Xavier Restrepo, who played in college with Cam Ward, went undrafted. He actually had some records at Miami with Cam Ward, goes undrafted because he had one of the slowest 40 times among all receivers. Might have been the slowest. A lot of people think his game speed is better than that 40 time that he had. We have him projected under Mason Kinsey. You know, you're not starting Xavier Restrepo today, but he probably will get out there and get some run. Does have familiarity at least. But yeah, DK is like on the wide receiver 3 radar now because there's no Imanor, there's no Ridley. Van Jefferson is pretty much dust at this point. He did score last week against the Texans, 20% target share for Van Jefferson. Man, this team is just really rough. I think Gunnar Helm and Chig, they're kind of interesting against the Seahawks, who haven't been good versus tight ends this season. Tajay Spears, we have ranked ahead of Tony Pollard. All these guys are so risky. I mean, not a single one of these Titans players ranks as startable here in week 12. I think Spears projects the best of all of them. Don't want to start any of these guys. I really don't against the Seahawks defense. This is a Seahawks team that's allowing the most sacks in the NFL, and they're playing a Titans team that's allowing the most sacks in the NFL, and they're playing a Seahawks defense that's generating the highest pressure rate in the NFL. I mean, this is like maybe stone cold worst matchup here that we could see for the Titans. That's why they're 13-point underdogs at home. All right, let's move on. Let's get to this Vikings-Packers game. The panic for the Vikings, the panic for J.J. McCarthy, the panic for Justin Jefferson. It's at an all-time high. I mean, I've never seen panic like this in the fantasy streets. I've been trying to trade for Justin Jefferson in every single one of my fantasy leagues. I saw some discords out there on Twitter this week saying that Justin Jefferson should be like a 4th or 5th round pick in next year's fantasy drafts if the season were to end today and J.J. McCarthy would be QB. I get the frustration. He hasn't been over 20 points since week 4. He has one game over 20 points all season. Justin Jefferson ranks as wide receiver 14 in points per game. He's still at wide receiver 7, though, in yards per game. But if you look at just the games with J.J. McCarthy, I mean, he's been like a wide receiver 3 for fantasy. 16.7, 7.7, 11.1 points. And he's just getting like empty targets. Like the target totals look good. The target shares look good. But so many of these targets are uncatchable. But it's so hard for me to ignore the fantasy football playoff schedule here for Justin Jefferson. Couple tough games here this week against the Packers, Seahawks next week. Then he gets the Commanders, Cowboys, Giants. 3 top 5 matchups for Justin Jefferson to end the season. I'm buying Justin Jefferson, not selling. And yeah, you're starting him every single week, no matter what. There's no benching Justin Jefferson in fantasy, regardless of the situation. I understand being panicked a little bit about JJ McCarthy, but I'm still pretty confident in Justin Jefferson. Aaron Jones, we were on this last week, 67% of the snap share, 70% snap share the week before. He's like in a workhorse role. He had 73% of the carries last week and 6 targets, 22 opportunities for Aaron Jones last week. Didn't do a ton with him, wasn't super efficient. Only 11 points against the Bears. This is a revenge game here for Aaron Jones. Pretty good chance at a touchdown. You're starting Aaron Jones, I think, in most leagues here in week 12. I have Hawkinson as a must bench. I want nothing to do with him. Jordan Mason's a clear bench. Jordan Addison, he's a back-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3. Now, you can start him in some spots. Don't feel great about Jordan Addison, though. If you're panicked on Justin Jefferson, you should be more panicked, I think, on Jordan Addison. On the Packers side of this game, this is the second big piece of injury news that we're waiting on. This is maybe the biggest piece of unknown injury news at this point of a Sunday morning we've had all season. Josh Jacobs is a true questionable, a true game time decision. Right now, we're projecting Josh Jacobs as out because he's playing on Thanksgiving in 4 days. He has a game 4 days from now. So I think that it's more likely they lean away from Josh Jacobs. And I think if Josh Jacobs plays, it's also pretty risky. He's not in like a full workhorse role that we're used to with Josh Jacobs because they know he's a game in 4 days. And he's not missing that game in 4 days on Thanksgiving. I believe that game is against the Lions. Yeah. They get the Lions here in week 13. So that makes Emmanuel Wilson a must start. If Josh Jacobs sits, you have to start Emmanuel Wilson. Even in a somewhat difficult matchup, the role should be pretty good here for Wilson. Like floor of 15 touches here for Emmanuel Wilson if Josh Jacobs is out. I think Wilson is still startable if Josh Jacobs plays, but he becomes a lot less exciting, a lot less likely to score the touchdowns. Packers defense is obviously a smash here in week 12. And then we have Dobbs, Christian Watson, Matthew Golden's questionable. It sounds like he's going to play. Dontavian Wicks. Jaden Reed is coming close to returning too. Just this hodgepodge of receivers is so tough for fantasy. Christian Watson's been balling. Like I understand the ceiling here and the story here for starting Christian Watson. I think the wide receiver start sits this week are like insanely difficult. You want to start Christian Watson over Andre Yoshivas? Yeah, I think I'd sign up for that. I think I would start him over Yoshivas. You want to start him over Jordan Addison? I could get behind that. I think that's not that unreasonable. You want to start him over Jacoby Myers, Christian Watson? I might do that too. There's definitely some pretty difficult wide receiver start sits this week, and Christian Watson has a ceiling. The Vikings have been really good against receivers. They actually have not been great at stopping deep passes this season, which is one of the main things Christian Watson does. We did see Metcalf have a pretty good game against them. Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown both did well. The Vikings have allowed, I think, one of the highest deep attempt completion rates in the NFL this season. But Romeo Doubs, he's going to lead this receiver room in target share most likely, like he's done most weeks. He had a 32% target share last week, 8 targets, only 9 points though. Musgrave is like way off the radar. He completely fell off last week. He's done nothing really since Tucker Kraft went out. Yeah, only 35% of the snaps. Not sure if there was an injury here for Musgrave or what exactly happened here against the Giants, but he had less than a point, 1 catch, -1 yards. Not a legit option for fantasy. Packers are 6.5-point favorites at home here versus the Vikings. The Packers barely beat the Giants last week. I mean, it was an extremely, extremely close game. We're about to jump to that Giants game. Super impressive to me, Jameis Winston last week, the whole Giants offense last week in a very windy game against this Packers defense. I honestly think the Vikings have a pretty good upset chance here in Green Bay in this one. I think they cover that 6.5. Let's go to the Lions and Giants. The Packers really should have lost the Giants last week. A couple huge plays that saved them. All right, let's get to this Giants-Lions game now. The New York Giants are the team I'm going with in stacks in DFS this week. This is my number 1 stackable team here in Week 12 Sunday DFS slate for DraftKings. I'll pull up my DraftKings lineup here at the in a few minutes here. Maybe I'll pull it up actually as I talk about this game. But Jameis Winston's near minimum price. And Jameis Winston, I was pretty impressed with last week. We did end up throwing an interception. That's to be expected. I don't really care how many interceptions he throws for fantasy with how the scoring works. Only threw one pick. He did fumble as well. Got sacked twice. But in significant wins against the Green Bay Packers, completes 65% of his passes, throws for over 200 yards, and he scored a rushing touchdown too. Finished with 12 points against the Packers in that type of environment. And we don't have him projected for that many more points than that against the Lions in a dome. I know the Lions defense looked decent against the Eagles last week on Sunday Night Football, but I really think there's a ceiling outcome here for Winston where he's throwing the ball more than 40 times and has 3+ touchdowns in this game, even if the Giants get crushed. The Giants defense will not stop this Lions offense. I mean, there's absolutely no chance. This is like similar to the Tyrod situation against the Ravens, but I think even a little bit better. See, I like Winston in DFS this week. I don't hate him. If you need a QB, if you're desperate for a QB, I know in a lot of leagues, Winston's the best available on the waiver wire right now. Let me hop over to the QB ranks here. And again, I think we're projecting like the floor here for Winston, in my opinion, at 13.9 points. I don't see him going under 13.9. Wan'Dale Robinson is a start this week. Darius Slayton is back. But the pass environment should be really good here. Wan'Dale's playing every single snap. He's got at least 9 targets now in 3 straight games. Wan'Dale's been over a 30% target share in 3 straight games. I'm starting that here against the Lions. Darius Slayton, I'm a little bit more nervous about because it's his first game back. Isaiah Hodgins had a pretty big role last week. Samps called that on this live stream, by the way. He went Jalen Naylor in week 10. And then Samps calls Isaiah Hodgins in week 11. I actually was able to scramble and get Hodgins in a DFS lineup last week at minimum price and did cash that lineup. Was very interested to see what Samps thinks about Slayton versus Hodgins and these Giants receivers. Because I do think a lot of these guys are interesting stacks with Winston. Darius Slayton has had a good target role, a good air yards role, hasn't done much with it all season. We really haven't seen an exciting Darius Slayton game yet. He did have 89 yards, 4 catches for 89 in his last game. I could see the ceiling for Slayton. We're obviously not starting Hodgins, but he might have a legit role. And then Theo Johnson, I think, is startable too. Ranks as tight end 18 for us right now. Again, I think near his floor is about where we're projecting him. He's playing basically every snap. He's out there over 90% of the snaps. Only 14% target share though last week. Tyrone Tracy's a super difficult start sit. This week, I know I saw Seth, no BS, fantasy member of the WalterPicks projections team, called Tracy a bench. This week, I get it. He's playing the Lions. Lions ranked number 1 against running backs this season. They stuffed Saquon Barkley last week. I mean, Saquon had, 10 points? Yeah, he had 10 points. So it's tough to get too excited about Tracy. But man, here in week 12, with some of the other options you got, you're starting Tracy or Michael Carter. I'm going Tracy there over Michael Carter. I actually have to make that call in one of my leagues. Carter had 7 targets last week. So I get the thinking there. But yeah, Tracy had 4 catches for 51 last week. He had 19 carries and 4 targets. He looked pretty good against a tough Packers defense. Frustrating how much Singletary's playing here, but Tracy's one of the tougher start sits, I think, of the week. And in some spots, I think you kind of just have to start him with the talent profile and the role that he's in. In the game environment here, he's the best receiving back this team has. They're going to be playing from behind. On the Lions side of this game, I mean, you got to smash the Lions into your lineups this week, guys. I mean, every single Lions player needs to be started. Amon-Ra St. Brown easily could be the wide receiver 1 on the week. I think there's a very good argument for him to project wide receiver 1 over Rashee Rice. We have it super close at the top of these wide receiver rankings. Jahmyr Gibbs, top 3 running back, could easily smash and be the number 1 running back this week. The Giants' run defense is arguably the worst in the NFL right now. I mean, this run defense is atrocious. The secondary is all injured. Their defensive line is still not terrible, but this Giants defense is just so obviously one to attack. We got Jared Goff coming off a pretty disappointing game too against the Eagles. Eagles defense looked legit in that game, by the way. I think the Eagles might have the best defense. If it's not the Texans, it's probably the Eagles right now. We know Jared Goff plays way better in the dome. And guys, Jared Goff has 6 straight dome games now. We don't see Jared Goff in this Lions offense not in a dome the rest of the season. This is why all these Lions players have been interesting buys. Jared Goff, an absolute must start. this week for sure against the Giants. See tight ends, please. Yeah, I got you with the tight ends. Jameson Williams, Waymo Jamo, he's had 3 straight boom games now. 3 straight games with at least 16 points, 3 straight games with a touchdown, 3 straight games with at least 4 catches and 65 yards. And I don't see why we wouldn't see a fourth straight game of all of those things here for Jameson Williams against this Giant secondary. And if I'm right too about Winston having a underrated game, underrated opportunity here, then these receivers are going to go absolutely nuclear. And then David Montgomery, he's number 2 free player prop of the day. I already talked about John Mechie over 24.5 receiving yards. I think that's a super sneaky prop that could hit very early in that Jets game and will be live the entire game in 1 or 2 catches for John Mechie, who's playing over 80% of the snaps for the Jets, but finally QB that can maybe complete some passes for the Jets. But if it's not the John Mechie prop, I do like David Montgomery to score today. I think it's around like minus 150. I really don't see a world where Montgomery's not getting several like very good opportunities to score in this game. The Giants' run defense is atrocious. The Lions are 14-point favorites in this game. Yeah, the 13-point favorites at home in this game. They're going to be scoring points almost every single drive here against the Giants. In Week 12, we saw Emmanuel Wilson score. We saw Monungai score. We saw Brian Robinson and McCaffrey score. We've seen almost a touchdown per game on the ground from running backs, the 5th most rushing touchdowns against running backs this season. They're allowing another almost half a touchdown through the air as well. And there was some coach speak this week about getting David Montgomery more involved. I think this is a game, not that we're benching Jahmyr Gibbs, but this is a game to scale back the role a little bit for Jahmyr Gibbs, try to keep him healthy, because this team's playing on Thanksgiving too, guys. They're playing in 4 days. You got to think about that. If you're an NFL team playing a game 4 days from now, you don't want to give Jahmyr Gibbs another 73% snap share like he had against the Eagles. You want to bring that back down to the 50% he had against the Commanders. This was a game, 50% of the snaps, Gibbs still had 38 points. We could see something very similar today here versus the Giants. But yeah, I do like David Montgomery's odds to score in this game. He's the 2nd free player prop of the day. So yeah, start the entire Lions team, I think, is the gist of this game. And I do think the Giants cover the 13-point spread as well. The Giants almost just beat the Packers. I really think we got to give some respect to the Giants offense last week. Honestly, super impressive, I think, in that game environment. I think an easier matchup here against the Lions. The Lions defense has been pretty good, though, at times this season. And they were really good last week. All right, Jaguars versus the Cardinals. This is at least a closer game. We got the Cardinals are 2.5-point underdogs. Jacoby Brissett looks like Joe Burrow. Like this I feel like this team just looks like the Bengals all of a sudden, where the defense can't get a stop. Jacoby Brissett, I believe he set some all-time hot. Did he break the NFL records last week? He definitely broke some Cardinals records. 57 pass attempts for Jacoby Brissett last week. He was the key in DFS. There was no key other than the Jacoby Brissett, Michael Wilson stack. Last week, Michael Wilson, he had a better game than Marvin Harrison's whole career combined. Brissett completed 47 of 57. Looking at this game is why I'm so bullish on the Panthers. Passing attack on Monday night. Bryce Young is coming off the best game of his career. And now he gets this 49er secondary that just allowed 47 completions for 452 yards and 2 TDs to Jacoby Brissett, like a career journeyman backup. Brissett finishes with 24 points. Brissett's now been a top 12 QB in all 5 of his starts. Jacoby Brissett's averaging over 20 points per game in his last 5 games. He's had exactly 2 passing touchdowns in all of those. He's got at least 250 passing yards in all of those. And now he gets the Jags with a super banged up secondary. So yeah, we're starting Brissett this week. If you don't have Goff, you don't have Mayfield, you don't have Lamar or Stafford or Mahomes or May or Hurts, you're starting Brissett. I'm starting Brissett over Caleb Williams. I'm starting him over Brock Purdy, over Trevor Lawrence in the same game, over Dak Prescott against the Eagles. I'm starting him over Daniel Jones. I don't know how we don't start Jacoby Brissett unless you have one of those other top, I'll call it 7 guys. I would start Goff over him. I would start Mayfield over him, even though he's in a tough matchup. I definitely would start Lamar and Stafford and Mahomes and May and Hurts. And similarly, I don't know how we possibly bench Michael Wilson when we go to the wide receiver ranks here. After last week, and this is a really good matchup for Michael Wilson too. The Jaguars have been better at stopping slot receivers this season than outside receivers, and Michael Wilson's playing almost entirely on the outside. He had 15 catches for 185 He had 19 targets, 18 targets in this game, 32% target share, 240 air yards. He could have had an even bigger day on a couple of those deep passes. It's honestly impressive to go 15 catches, 185, and not score. Like if you look across the NFL history of players who had at least 15 catches or players who had at least 185 yards, almost all those guys have scored touchdowns in those games. No TD for Michael Wilson last week, still the wide receiver 1 versus the 49ers. And again, I don't know how you look at this and you aren't pretty excited for Monday night for Tet McMillan and for Xavier Legette and even Jalen Cook. I think Legette and McMillan are the ones to be most excited for, though. And because the 49ers offense, by the way, in that game, not going to be stopped either. I mean, that should be a really exciting Monday night game, I think. So we're starting Michael Wilson. We're starting Jacoby Brissett. I didn't even mention Trey McBride, but I mean, he is far and away the best tight end in fantasy football this season. I mean, if the season ended now, he'd be one of the best picks in fantasy. He's giving you like a 5-point per game advantage over every other tight end. And it's even better than that if you just look at the games with Jacoby Brissett. I mean, he's been a touchdown scoring machine. He only has 2 games without a touchdown since week 3. He leads all tight ends in catches. He leads all tight ends in receiving yards. He leads all tight ends in every important metric, every single volume metric. I mean, it's most routes, highest route percentage, highest targets, highest target share, most air yards, most air yard share. I mean, there's no stopping Trey McBride right now. And he gets a great matchup versus the Jags too. Michael Carter, I mentioned him versus Tyrone Tracy, I think highlights some of the more difficult start sits of the week here. Guys, shout out to every single one of you in this live right now. We're going to get to literally maybe 1,000 start sits here in week 12. This is it. This is it, guys. The trade deadline's coming past. I think in most of my leagues, tomorrow is the trade deadline. So I'll probably still be working the trade line like the next 24 hours or so. But this is it. We gotta nail the start sits now. We got to get into the fantasy playoffs, and then we got to win in the fantasy playoffs. And that really is going to come down to the best start sit decisions now down the stretch. We got to be locked in here. And I got a really tough one in one of my leagues of Michael Carter versus Tyrone Tracy. We just saw Saquon only have 10 points versus the Lions. Meanwhile, Michael Carter, he's projected over 10 versus the Jags. I think we're projecting in the WalterPicks App Michael Carter like way higher than ESPN and Yahoo and Sleeper in the projections you'll see there. This matchup versus the Jags defensive line is pretty good. They shut down the Chargers in their last game. I mean, the Chargers offense looked horrible in their last game versus the Jags. The week before that, Woody Marks did have 16 points, was a top 12 running back. Genty had 19.9. Genty had 5 catches too. Vidal had 2 catches. Woody Marks had 2 catches. And the whole reason Michael Carter projects this way is he had 5 catches last week on 7 targets. Again, there was 57 pass attempts for Brissett last week. We're not going to see that again. But 7 targets, 12.5% target share. We have him projected for 4 targets this week. And there's no DiMercado either. DiMercado got hurt in that last game. That's like a pretty big deal. Michael Carter had played 43% of the snaps. It's just him and Bam Knight. Bam Knight's going to be the preferred rusher, but Michael Carter's going to get like all the pass down work. I believe they have a third running back in this game that nobody's ever heard of. Yeah, Jamar Jefferson. Not the Justin type of Jefferson. We got a Jamar Jefferson here, 25.6 years old. I mean, I assume this is a special teams running back. Let me just go look up some info here on this Jamar Jefferson because he's probably going to get in the game. I mean, the Cardinals have played. I don't even know if I can find. Yeah, here he is, Jamar Jefferson. The Cardinals have played 3 running backs in like every single game. Yeah, he was a 7th round draft pick back in 2021, Jamar Jefferson. He's played in 9 career games. Last year, he did have 6 carries for 22 yards. I don't know on what team. Let's see what team he was on. In 2024, he played in week 16 and 17. Didn't get over 10% snap share, had 3 carries in each of those games. Chat, let me know what team Jamar Jefferson was on last week. But yeah, that's who Michael Carter's competing with here for the pass game work. So I get it. I get the floor case for Michael Carter. I think I'm going Tracy, though, personally over him. That's pretty much it here for the Cardinals. I think there's going to be some Greg Dortch questions. I prefer to bench Greg Dortch. He did have a good game last week. Again, 57 pass attempts, though. He wasn't even at an 11% target share. He's not playing every snap. He's an exclusive slot receiver, too, and the Jags have been better against the slot receivers So I would prefer to bench Dortch. I actually think Dortch's unders are kind of interesting in this game. And I really don't want to start Bam Knight either because he's not going to get the pass game work. We have Michael Carter projected ahead of Bam Knight because of the projected game script here for the Cardinals and the potential pass volume. Thanks for the gift in the TikTok live. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate every single one of you guys seriously in this live stream right now. On the Jaguars side of this game, we got Trevor Lawrence as a back end QB1 this week. Again, I'm starting Brissett like over him pretty easily. I'm really not forcing Trevor Lawrence into lineups. I think there's a pretty good case for Bryce Young over Trevor Lawrence, who we have Bryce Young behind Lawrence right now. Brenton Strange, I have in the must bench category this week. And man, I don't think there is a soul out there. I think you'd be very, very tough to find a soul out there more excited than mine about Brenton Strange's return. Guys, I did over 500 best ball drafts this year over on Underdog. And Brenton Strange was my most drafted tight end. Like, I need Brenton Strange back. I am so excited. My best ball teams are perfect timing here for Brenton Strange to return. I went very dusty tight end in best ball in a ton of leagues. I got Brenton Strange, Juwan Johnson, and Theo Johnson. Like, one of those guys is on all my best ball teams. And Brenton Strange, they're the most. Not a terrible matchup here for Brenton Strange. We did just see, I believe it was George Kittle, absolutely smash the Arizona Cardinals last week. Yeah, he was tight end 2, 6 catches, 67, 2 TDs. We saw Ferguson do okay. Tucker Kraft, some of the better tight ends have done well. I don't want to start Strange in his first game back. I think there's some pretty good tight ends that you can go find and start over Brenton Strange. Like, I'm starting Juwan Johnson over Strange like pretty easily in his first game back. I do think, though, in deeper leagues, Strange is worth holding on to. He's got a pretty good fantasy playoff schedule against the Colts, Jets, Broncos, Colts in his final 4 games. Brenton Strange, guys, before he was hurt, this was with Brian Thomas. This was with Travis Hunter. Brenton Strange was leading the Jaguars in receiving. He was leading the team in receiving. Had at least 3 catches in his 4 straight games. He had over 45 yards in 3 of his 4 games to start the season. And that was, again, with Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. There's no Brian Thomas Jr. again this week. Travis Hunter's obviously out for the season. Jacoby Myers projects a little bit better than Parker Washington here in week 12. I honestly think Parker Washington's a little safer this week than Jacoby, but I get the projection here ahead for Jacoby. He did a 5 for 64 last week. His role is increasing. He's up to 65% of the snaps. He had almost a 30% target share last week. I do think Jacoby's a better all-around receiver. I think the matchup this week, though, is not terrible for Parker Washington in the slot. No Brian Thomas Jr. again. The target share was only 9%. For Parker Washington, he had 16 targets over his last 2 games, then he only 2 last week. He had 26 targets over his last 3. He was averaging almost not 8 targets a game in his previous 3 games, then only 2 targets last week, but really tough matchup against the Chargers last week. He's had the Jaguars have had the 2 toughest wide receiver matchups that exist in their last 2 games against the Texans and the Chargers. Pretty interesting sleepers here, I think, both Jacoby Myers and Parker Washington. Bayshaw Tootin. I hope you guys are all aboard the Toot train like I am. That is my team name in multiple leagues there this season with Bayshaw Tootin. I am starting him in multiple leagues here in week 12 with the buys. The coach speak on Bayshaw Tootin couldn't be stronger. And I think because of the injury for Bayshaw Tootin last week's game, like really going overlooked, I think, by a lot of people in fantasy football with what was happening with Bayshaw Tootin and Travis Etienne. You look at the game logs and you don't get this context. Bayshaw Tootin only played 33% of the snaps. That was it. He ran 4 routes. He did have 15 carries, but only 32% of the carries for the team. But what you're missing here is the fact that he didn't play the entire 4th quarter because he hurt his ankle. And before that, he was out carrying and out producing Travis Etienne. He had more carries than Etienne in the first 3 quarters. And he looked very good, guys, on these carries. 74 yards and a touchdown. He was really generating yards after contact as well. I'm not saying he's going to lead this backfield in carries necessarily today, but it's definitely within his range of outcomes. I mean, he was on pace to do it last week. It's a pretty good matchup here versus the Cardinals as well. We just saw McCaffrey absolutely smash this Cardinals team. McCaffrey had 35 points last week, 81 yards, two rushing touchdowns, 5 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown as well. The problem in this backfield is LaQuint Allen is going to keep playing these pass down snaps, and Etienne's not going away. Etienne still projects better than Tootin this week, but yeah, I'm pretty excited about that role expansion for Tootin last week. I think there's a real ceiling here down the stretch We probably won't see the ceiling similar to Trevion Henderson. I don't think we're going to really see the ceiling unless ETN misses time, but the floor is rising, I think, with the role we saw last week. All right, that's the Jaguars side of this Jaguars-Cardinals game. Sneakily, I think one of the more exciting games of the week, coming off a 57 pass attempt game for Jacoby Brissett. We got Bashal Tutin's role expanding. Brenton Strange is back. I think Parker Washington and Jacoby Myers are pretty interesting sleepers here as well. Cardinals are 2.5-point underdogs in this game at home. I do like the Cardinals personally in this one. All right, on to this next game, which has got to be, it has to be one of the grossest projected games of the season. This is the Cleveland Browns versus the Las Vegas Raiders. We got Shedeur Sanders starting in his first game of his career. And Shedeur, it was as bad as it could possibly be for him last week. And I do want to give Shedeur like a little bit of a grain of salt looking at last week, because he did get thrown in there, halfway through the game. He was not expected to play in this game. But yeah, it couldn't have been worse. He played 50% of the snaps. He got thrown in halfway through the game. And he goes out there. He has 2.9 yards per attempt and a 25% completion percentage. And guys, I did more rookie research before the NFL draft than I ever have my entire life. This NFL draft. And it's probably going to be even more this upcoming NFL draft. I've started to enjoy that more and more every single year. I think it really gives me an advantage in fantasy too once season-long leagues come around. I did not like Shedeur Sanders ahead of the NFL draft. Before the NFL draft, I thought, no way is Shedeur Sanders a first-round quarterback. I also think he probably should have gotten picked a little earlier than he did. Like, he slid further than I thought was reasonable. Like, I thought he was a second or third-round QB. But guys, second or third-round QBs generally are not good for fantasy football, are not good NFL QBs. Because if you had legit QB potential to, lead a franchise, usually you're going in the first round. And obviously we've seen cases where that's not true. I do think Shedeur Sanders does better this week with a full week to prepare to be the starter. But there's a lot of flaws in Shedeur Sanders' game. The Browns' offensive line is also not great. It's not like they have like an elite system that he's stepping into. So yeah, I'm pretty down on Shedeur Sanders being like able to sustain drives. I think getting him outside the pocket will probably help, but this is also a pretty difficult defensive line they're playing against. So the Browns offense could really, really struggle today. I want nothing to do with this passing attack like at all today. Shedeur Sanders still somehow projects, by the way, better than Cam Ward because he plays the Seahawks today, which tells you enough about Cam Ward's situation in the whole Titans offense. Quinshon Judkins should have a huge role in this game versus the Raiders. They haven't been amazing versus running backs. I mean, this is the one competency for the Browns offense right now. So yeah, it makes sense to get Judkins a ton of work. We just saw Javonte Williams have 93 rushing yards. He played 75% of snaps. He had 22 carries, 4.2 yards per carry, did Javonte last week against this Raiders defense. The problem in this game, I have really no faith in the Browns offense to sustain drives. It's going to be all on Judkins, and I don't think any of these pass catchers could possibly be started. Judy ranks as wide receiver 40. Cedric Tillman ranks as wide receiver 59. Malachi Corley is their wide receiver 3. And Njoku and Fannin, like Fannin, maybe they get some short game stuff going to Fannin, but he really can't be started this week either. So the Browns, with arguably the worst starting quarterback, across the league today, really tough to trust. But then the Raiders, I mean, there's almost no way they could sustain drives against this Browns defense either. The Raiders, how many times was Geno sacked in their last game? Four sacks against the Cowboys. He was sacked 6 times against the Broncos. He's been sacked 10 times his last 2 games. And now he gets the Browns. The run game has been non-existent. I mean, they dropped Geno back way too often in that last game. I get the strat against the Cowboys, but Genty had 6 carries for 7 yards. It's tough to expect like too much more than that against this Browns defense. I mean, neither of these offenses I don't think has much hope today. Brock Bowers, he projects as tight end 4. He's really the only player in this game like you absolutely need to start. Judkins and Genty, I think, are starts still. 7 for 72 last week. We have him for 5 for 55 here in week 12 against the Browns. So we're starting Bowers. You kind of have to start Genty, even though the matchup's tough. He has at least been more involved as a receiver of late. And then for the Browns, you're starting Judkins. You can't start anyone else. And I do, the more I've thought, I've gone back and forth in this game, I think a million times in my head, because I have no faith in Shadur, but I also have no faith in the Raiders offense. I'm willing to just bet on the Browns defense in this one and say the Browns in this game. I lean on the Browns this game. They're 3.5-point underdogs too. I take the points at 3.5 there. This Raiders offense, I don't think has much hope here versus the Browns. All right, on to, there's only a few games left here. Falcons versus Saints. Shout out to everyone in the comments, by the way. I see the comments rolling in, guys. We're going to get to a ridiculous amount of start-sit comments on this live stream today. And yeah, huge pick with Michael Wilson last week. We were all over Michael Wilson on the fly, especially Samps. Samps is going to come in on this live in like an hour or so, a little less than an hour, and talk us through the slate, give some of his takes as well. Jacksonville, Pats, or Philly D this week. Yeah, I'd probably lean towards the Jags or the Pats. Honestly, I think I might go the Pats there over Philly. All right, let's get to this Falcons-Saints game. When I looked at the spreads this week, definitely this game was the one that stood out to me the most as surprising. As I've digested all the data this week and looked into this matchup more and more, the more it's made some sense to me. But the Falcons are underdogs, guys, in this game. They opened as 3-point favorites. They're now 2-point underdogs in New Orleans. The Falcons have played down to their opponent all season. They lost to the Panthers twice. And now Michael Penix is out for the season. And Drake London is out in this game too. Drake London's been the entire passing attack outside of Kyle Pitts. The last time London was out, Kyle Pitts had a huge game. I believe that was week 4. Let me pull up the London game logs here. I believe he did miss a game. No, he was out there week 4. Yeah, he missed week 8 against the Dolphins. And in week 8 versus the Dolphins, yeah, Kyle Pitts went for 15 points, had 9 catches. Kyle Pitts had a season high, maybe a career high there, 9 catches against the Dolphins in that one. A 30% target share for Kyle Pitts in the one game without Drake London this season. So Kyle Pitts, he ranks top 5 this week. There's very few tight ends you're starting over Kyle Pitts here in week 12. And not many people are talking about it. Kyle Pitts has had a bit of an underrated season. Back-to-back games under 6 points. He's fallen off a little bit. He's actually under 10 points per game still. Not as underrated as I thought. He is top 12 in yards and catches, though. He was basically free in fantasy drafts this season. He projects top 5 here in week 12 in a critical week 12. Darnell Mooney, I think Samps, when he comes on the live later, since we've talked about this on the projections team at WalterPicks, he's pretty out on Darnell Mooney. He's pretty unconvinced. He hasn't had a game over 10 points all season. He's had like pretty good roles this season too with Drake London in. But this is the type of guy I could talk myself into here in week 12 with some of the other receiver options you're going to be looking at. Like Darnell Mooney, his floor is pretty high in terms of his role. Now, I know not too much faith in Kirk Cousins. The Saints secondary hasn't been terrible. And again, we really haven't seen it from Mooney all season. But his floor is 20% of the targets here for the Falcons. They're underdogs in this game. And like the air yards have been really strong for Mooney. Like the targets he's seeing are valuable targets. And it's not like we haven't seen Darnell Mooney have big games in fantasy before. We haven't really seen it this season, but we've seen it in past seasons. I mean, let's just go back 1 year. In many of these games were with Kirk Cousins. He went over 30 points in week 5 last season. He had multiple games over 14 points, 20-point game here in week 14 last season. Like almost all these big games too were with Kirk Cousins. There's a familiarity here between Kirk Cousins and Darnell Mooney. So I'm starting Mooney here in week 12 in like almost all situations that I'm in, at least. He's not like an auto must start. There's 24 receivers we have ranked ahead of him. I think I would start him over Pearsall. I think I would start him over Jacoby Myers. That's probably it for me, though, in terms of where we have him ranked. I'm starting Zay and Olave and Wandale and Metcalf and Pittman over him. But yeah, I'm starting Mooney over Jordan Addison. I'm starting Mooney over Juwan Jennings. I'm starting Mooney over Dobbs and Worthy and Pierce and Parker Washington and Jalen Coker. I feel pretty good about Mooney this week. His prop lines are in the mid-40s, and I think that's pretty reasonable, and that's on the higher side. Bijan Robinson, I think, is going to absolutely smash today versus the Saints. I don't know how, with everything going on here for the Saints. Drake London goes down. Michael Penix goes down. You don't really lean on Bijan, who's coming off a 30-point game himself, a little bit overshadowed by some of the other bigger games from running backs last week. Good matchup here versus the Saints. I think Bijan has a very good chance to be the number 1 overall running back down the stretch of the season here. He gets the Saints, Jets, tough matchup versus the Seahawks, and the Bucs, Cardinals. Way easier schedule here than Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, I think you can safely drop one of these guys. I think it's probably a little safer to drop Quentin Johnson personally, but it's close. But you can definitely drop one of those guys. Luther Burden over Coker, yeah. Yeah, and I play Luther Burden over Shaheed too, though. Shaheed definitely has a chance here at a big play in this game. So we're starting Pitts. We're starting Bijan. I'm starting Mooney personally. We'll see if Sam talks me out of that. On the Saints side of this game, we're going to talk about that Seahawks game. Shaheed, obviously not on the Saints anymore. But yeah, I do think Shaheed has a chance. Like, the Titans have been horrible against outside receivers. Shaheed has a pretty good chance at one big play, two big plays in this game, but the floor is low. The floor is definitely low. Cooper Kupp still has a role on that team. AJ Barner had 7 catches last week. And obviously JSN's going to get a huge role. And they just might not need to throw a lot versus the Titans. But if they do, like, Shaheed's going to have at least one chance at a big play. For the Saints, you're starting Chris Olave against the Falcons. Tet McMillan just absolutely annihilated this Falcons secondary. I mean, really, really surprising, honestly, how good that Panthers passing attack looked last week. The Falcons have been a run funnel all season. And then last week just completely flipped. Tet McMillan goes for 33 points. Xavier Legette goes for 18. Jalen Coker had 11. I mean, these guys combined for 60 fantasy points, the receivers, versus the Falcons last week. So yeah, you're starting Olave, who's just so locked in as the top target in this offense. I mean, it's no one remotely close to Olave in terms of target share projection for this team. And they're also projected to be in a close game here. 31% target share in his last game, Chris Olave, without Rashid Shaheed, projecting him for 31% today. I mean, he could legit hit a 50% target share, and it wouldn't be that crazy on this team. The next best receiver on this team, guys, is Devon Bailey. And Devon Bailey is going to have a legit role in this game. It's Olave, Devon Bailey, and Mason Tipton. That's what we're looking at here for the Saints, and they're favored against the Falcons with Tyler Shuck starting. But Tyler Shuck actually played pretty well in his last game. He had 19 fantasy points versus the Panthers. 282, 2 passing touchdowns, completed 70% of his passes. Panthers secondary hasn't been terrible this season. The Saints offense can scheme around their players really, really well this season. Oh man, I see this is a rough week 12 start sit here. There's some tough week 12 start sits. And if you guys are watching live on TikTok, guys, I'm telling you, come to the YouTube live. A link is in the TikTok bio. All the same info, obviously, on both lives, but I can pull up comments on screen. On the YouTube live, I can share my screen on the YouTube live. And man, I mean, Kamara, I looked at Kamara's projections like 3 times this morning because it felt like he was projected too high, but the matchup's good here versus the Falcons. Kamara, low-key, has a really good playoff schedule, rest of season schedule. Doesn't have a bad matchup for the rest of the season. The problem is he has not been good all season. I mean, he clearly looks washed, but he did have 22 carries in his last game. Like, it doesn't seem like they want to hand over the wheel to Devin Neal. Kendra Miller's been out for the season for a while. Taysom Hill's playing like a small role. The receiving role has been pretty disappointing. For Alvin Kamara, this is the lowest target share we've seen in Kamara's like whole career. I think since like 2015, you'd have to go back to find a lower, 2016, 2017, you'd have to go back to see if there's a lower target share for Kamara, who's been top 5 in running back target share in like 7 straight seasons. And not the case this year right now. He's at 18, ranks 18 in target share among running backs. But yeah, the role does not look that bad here for Kamara. Like, the role projection's good, the matchup's good. I think you play Kamara over Yoshivas. Yeah, I'm out on Yoshivas, especially in a non-PPR league too. Like, this is like maybe a week you can start Kamara. Feels kind of gross to say, but they're favored at home. He had 22 carries in his last game. He had 25 opportunities. You know, take the player's name out of it. He has a top 3 running back matchup, and he had 25 opportunities in his last game. And you're asking him versus Yoshivas? Like, yeah, we're going the guy getting 25 opportunities in a top 3 matchup, even though he's washed in 30 years old. All right, on to the next game here. I do think the more I've thought about it, I think I do like the Saints to win this game at home. As weird as it is for the Falcons to be underdogs in this one, Saints win this game, they have the same record as the Falcons. All right, on to this next game, Eagles-Cowboys. This is a rematch of the first game in the season, if you guys can remember that, a lifetime ago. These two teams faced off in the opening game of the season this year. And we had the best defensive player on the Eagles getting kicked out of that game before the first offensive snap I mean, it was a wild game. A totally different environment here, I think, here in week 12. This one's in Dallas, too. That game was in Philly. So this game's in a dome in Dallas. Jalen Hurts projects as QB1 this week. And I know a lot of you guys are going to scoff at that with how Jalen Hurts has been playing at times this season. He's been under 15 points in back-to-back games. Really did not do anything against the Lions last week. But, guys, you look at the matchup tab here for the Cowboys. I don't know how Jalen Hurts isn't in the QB1 conversation. I mean, last week was the first bad game we've really seen against the Cowboys all season. It was against Geno. He still had 14 points. Like, the floor for Jalen Hurts is like 15, 16, 17 points in this game. Obviously, has a great chance at a rushing touchdown. The Cowboys defense did look better last week. They did add some pieces at the trade deadline. Maybe this defense is getting a little bit better. I'm game for that narrative. I think that's reasonable. But you're still not benching any of these guys. You're not benching Jalen Hurts. You're not benching Saquon Barkley. You're not benching A.J. Brown. You're not benching Devontae Smith. All these guys are top 12 players at their positions. And honestly, Dallas Goedert's top 12 at his too. You want Eagles players against the Cowboys. Because as good as this Eagles defense is, this Cowboys offense might be one of the few offenses that's going to be able to still put up points against the Eagles. This Cowboys offense looks borderline unstoppable right now. Eagles defense is still in play because I think they're still one of the best, most talented defenses. Can I pull up QB ranks? Yeah, I'll pull up the QB ranks here on the YouTube live, guys. Let me know in the chat which rankings you want to see next. We're locked in, guys, on the start sits this week. We're a couple games left, and I'm going to get to, I promise, a ton of start sits in the chat. We're going to try to get to every single player being asked about. I have been buying Saquon Barkley all season. I've been buying and buying and buying. I have Saquon, I think, in half or more than half of my leagues. I've just been buying the panic all year because Saquon last season, he was one of the most matchup sensitive running backs in fantasy football. He averaged only like 14, 15 points per game in bottom 12 matchups. He averaged over 25 points per game in the top 12 matchups. And this season is really not getting talked about how Saquon Barkley has had a pretty difficult schedule. He's had 6 games against bottom 12 running back matchups. And he has not done well, guys, in those 6 games. We have seen some pretty good games in some of the better matchups, though. And the role is still really good for Saquon. I know the offensive line picked up some more injuries last week, which is rough. They were finally getting back and healthy. But yeah, I think the ceiling here for Saquon is really underrated against the Cowboys. I think the ceiling for him rest of season is still the number 1 running back in fantasy football. Some other good running backs he's competing with, obviously, to get there. But yeah, I'm pretty excited for Saquon this week. He's going to find his way into some of my DFS lineups this week. I think he's going to be underowned, underplayed in DFS this week against the Cowboys. On the Cowboys side of this game, you're starting everyone on this offense, even in tough matchups. CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Jake Ferguson, Dak, Javonte, all are startable. Really, Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, and Javonte, these are the must starts in this game. Jake Ferguson and Dak, you could go other ways. I think we got Brissett, I believe, over Dak in the ranks this week, and I think I probably agree with that. It's coming off a 24-point game versus the Raiders, 4 passing touchdowns. Guys, don't look now, but George Pickens is one of the best fantasy picks of the season. I think he was one of the guys I was highest on heading into the draft season. I talked about him in the draft guide extensively. I mean, honestly, like looking back on it, it was just so clear that George Pickens was going to smash expectations. Guys, last season, Jalen Tolbert was the number 2 receiver for the Cowboys. And George Pickens' career yards per out run was like double Jalen Tolbert's. He's averaging over 90 yards per game now. I know CeeDee Lamb missed some games, but guys, last week CeeDee Lamb played. Pickens went 9 for 144 and a touchdown, 34% target share, and didn't play the first drive because he missed the bus. He was late to the bus. Man. This game's in Dallas. I do personally like the Eagles in this one. The Eagles are 3-point favorites in Dallas. I could definitely see this one going either way, though. The Cowboys are 3-point underdogs. I have a lot of confidence in the Eagles defense right now. Again, I still think the Cowboys offense will be able to put up points, but definitely think the Eagles defense is capable of a few takeaways in this game. I still don't have a ton of confidence in the Dallas defense, and I do think the Eagles offense is probably getting a little underrated in this matchup, just across the board. All right, 2 games left. We got the Sunday night game, the Monday night football game. Then we're going to get to literally thousands of start sits on the live, guys. If you're just tuning in or you've been here from the beginning, smash the like button. If you're watching live on TikTok, hit the follow button, guys. We are 5 years in, 12 weeks in to these Sunday morning lives, man. I have not missed a single Sunday morning someone do the math for me in terms of the number of Sunday mornings here. Absolutely look forward to these Sunday morning lives all week, and really excited to have you all here with me today. Seriously appreciate it. And guys, if you haven't checked out the WalterPicks app yet, you got to check it out. I mean, at this point in the fantasy season, you are actively hurting your chances not to win by not trying the WalterPicks app. It's a free app. I've spent the last 5+ years of my life helping build this app. It's up on screen on the YouTube live right now. If you're into player props, this is a complete cheat code for player props too. I'll recap my free player props here in a bit after we get through these two games. You can find this app for free on the App Store, WalterPicks, both on Android and on iOS. All right, let me go to, we got 2 games left here. This is going to be a really fun Sunday night game. We have Baker Mayfield projected pretty high here this week, even in a tough matchup versus the Rams. The Rams are 7-point favorites at home. This game's another dome game. By the way, Weatherman Sam has absolutely nothing to report this week. After I think last week was the worst weather week of the season, 0 concerning weather out there here in week 12, a bunch of dome games to go alongside that. On the Rams side of this game, Puka's an absolute smash. I mean, he's not going to be stopped by this Buccaneers secondary. Almost no chance. Devontae Adams and Puka, both absolute must start. Stafford's a must start as well. And I'm a Pats fan. I've been advocating for Drake May to be in like a very legitimate part of the MVP conversation since like week 2 or week 3. And he's not going to win it, guys, because it's going to be Matt Stafford. It's going to be Stafford. If Stafford has the exact same stats as May, I mean, Stafford's going to win by a landslide. It's not going to be close. He has the name value, the career value that is going to be weighted in his MVP voting. And he also is going to have the touchdowns. He's going to have the touchdowns over May. This team throws inside the 10, inside the 5, inside the red zone more than like any team in the league. And they have some really good games here down the stretch to pump the stats up for Stafford. And the Pats also have just a ton of run-heavy games coming up too. The end of the season carries so much weight into the MVP voting as well. But yeah, you're starting Stafford, you're starting Adams. Kyren Williams, I saw a comment earlier. Why is Kyren Williams ranked so low? Yeah, let's take a look at that. The Bucs run defense has not been great this season. Kyron's been over 16 points in 5 of his last 6 games. He only had 12 carries, though, in his last game. I think we probably are under projecting this maybe a little bit. We got Kyron behind Kenneth, behind Montgomery. I mean, there's a lot of good running backs ahead of him. I think starting him over Genty, maybe Genty's a little too high. I'd be okay with that. Is there like a super high ceiling for Kyron? I mean, he does have 4 touchdowns in his last 2 games. He just doesn't really have a receiving role. He had 2 targets last week, but he only ran 11 routes. Blake Corum has been pretty involved too. I mean, he ranks kind of low, but he doesn't project bad. 12.6 points. Projection it seems a little low for Kyron. I think I'm fine starting him over Kenneth, over Montgomery, maybe even over Aaron Jones. I maybe would put him above Genty and just behind Swift. Maybe running back 14 is more reasonable for Kyren Williams. Looking a little deeper into this, Corum's taking a third of the snaps, and he's taking some of the like half the targets from Kyren. But yeah, Kyren Williams still has a pretty good chance at a touchdown. It's a pretty good matchup here against the Bucs too. It was James Cook, I believe, in that last game that absolutely smashed this Buccaneers defense. Yeah, he had 20 points. Ty Johnson had 15 too. Ty Johnson, one of the most underrated receiving backs in the league. Trevin Henderson crushed 2 long rushing touchdowns. Kyren Williams is not that type of player, really. But the floor is not bad here for Kyren Williams in a game that should be pretty high scoring. 50-point total in this game. And then on the Buccaneers side of this game, Chris Godwin's back. Obviously, we can't thrust him into starting lineups. Like I will not start Chris Godwin. We have him ranked as wide receiver 37. I'd start Rashid Shaheed and Slayton, I think, over him. I'd start Leggett and Jalen Coker over him. I don't think you could start Godwin in his first game back. To me, I almost always lean this way in these cases with guys on their first game back from injuries. We don't know exactly what the role is going to be. I think this is like a especially true case here with Godwin, with the whole story line, the whole timeline here of injuries from the super significant injury last season, misses the first 3 games, comes back, gets another injury that was like related, but not related to this existing injury. Honestly, he's back a little earlier than I think we even expected, which is great to see. But yeah, you're not starting Chris Godwin his first game back. But it does make Tez Johnson like almost unstartable also. And Sterling Shepard and the rest of these receivers, Cameron Johnson, who has been a staple on my 32-person team, just praying for a point every week from Cameron Johnson in that league. Cade Otton projects as a top 7 tight end. I mentioned this earlier, but A.J. Barner had a huge game against the Rams last week. The Rams, the only position the Rams have not been great against this season is tight ends. They've been really one of the best defenses in the league at stopping the run. They've been one of the best defenses in the league at stopping the pass because they're generating so much pressure. But at tight end, they allowed 10 catches for 70 yards to A.J. Barner last week. And Cade Otton, cardio Cade, he's not taking snaps off, man. He's not taking snaps off. He's been a really consistent target share. Even with Godwin back, I'm okay starting cardio Cade this week, unless you have one of the elite tight ends. Unless you have Tyler Warren. I put Kyle Pitts in this conversation since he had a 30% target share in the one game without London this season. And then Bowers, Kelsey, Kittle, McBride. Otherwise, I'm starting Cade Otton. I'm starting Otton over Andrews, Ferguson, Goddard, Loveland, Mason Taylor, etc. I know we're going to get a ton of Sean Tucker questions this weekend, guys. I don't like victory lapping too often, but we were on the Sean Tucker game last week. We were really, really on this. We had the Sean Tucker prop in the WalterPicks app. I had Sean Tucker in multiple DFS lineups. I talked about Sean Tucker on this live over a lot of players that people were trying to start over him, and he has 34 points. The difference this week, though, guys, he gets the Rams. I mean, he's going from one of the best running back matchups that exists to one of the toughest running back matchups that exists, and he does not catch passes. He did have a pretty long receiving touchdown last week. He had 2 catches, I think, on those 2 targets, 34 receiving yards and a touchdown. But this is not a pass-catching running back here. Rashad White's still going to be the primary pass-catching running back. Rashad White's still going to have a big role, and he gets the Rams, who the Rams have a case to be the number 1 run defense in the league. I know the Pats are allowing the fewest yards per carry. The Browns have been really good. There's some good run defenses. But if you adjust for strength of opponent, the Rams might actually have been the best run defense in the league because they played Saquon, JT, McCaffrey, and Derrick Henry. They played McCaffrey twice. They haven't played a bad running back, and they're still allowing the 2nd fewest rushing touchdowns per game, the 8th fewest rushing yards per game, the 3rd fewest fantasy points per game. I mean, wrap your head around this, guys. Listen to the running backs they played and the fact they've allowed the 3rd fewest fantasy points per game for running backs. The Rams have played, they played Nick Chubb in week 1, Tony Pollard in week 2, 2 easy running backs. Then they played Saquon, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Travis Etienne, Alvin Kamara, not great. Then McCaffrey again, and last week, Kenneth Walker. And Kenneth Walker actually played pretty well. Like, some of these guys have had good games, but still they're allowing the 3rd fewest points per game despite that list of running backs. All that to say, Sean Tucker can be started in some spots this week. He does project better than Rashad White. There's been more coach speak. He's going to keep getting the ball with how well he's played. He's going to get probably at least 10, 12 carries in this game. But I think there's a pretty scary floor still here for Sean Tucker. I'm not calling him a must start here in week 12. And he was on the sleepers list last week. If I pull up on TikTok, my sleepers list this week is Jameis Winston, Tyrod Taylor, Bashaw Tutin, Michael Carter, Luther Burden, Jalen Coker, Theo Johnson, and Isaiah Likely. That's the sleeper list for me this week. Last week, it did include some smashes like Sean Tucker. I do like the Rams in this game. They are 7-point favorites at home. I think Baker Mayfield and Emeka Egbuka are the must-starts here on the Buccaneers side of the game. And Cade Otton's interesting too. All right, Panthers versus 49ers. I've already alluded to this game several times, but I think I'm like a little bit irrationally excited about this Monday night game. We got Christian McCaffrey in a quote-unquote revenge game here versus the Panthers. He will not be stopped. I mean, there's just no world where McCaffrey's getting stopped versus Panthers run defense. We just saw Bijan go for 30 points against the Panthers. Algier had like another 10 points on top of that. McCaffrey's coming off a 35-point game. McCaffrey's had at least 34 points in 3 of his last 5 games. You did just hear me correctly. At least 34 in 3 of his last 5 games. He's averaging almost 7 catches for 67 yards per game. Guys, these are like the same numbers as Trey McBride. He's putting up Trey McBride receiving numbers. But he's also averaging 64 rushing yards and half a touchdown per game. This 49ers offense is finally back. Pearsall's healthy. Juwan Jennings is healthy. Kittle's healthy. McCaffrey's healthy. Purdy is healthy. And this Panthers defense is not good. They're not going to be able to stop the run. So, the 49ers, they're basically a lock for 30-plus in this game. Kittle's a must-start. McCaffrey's a must-start. We have Pearsall projected just ahead of Juwan Jennings, which I don't think I personally agree with. We have it super close. It's obviously a tough call. But after last week, I think I'd lean Jennings just barely over Pearsall. Going to be such a flip of a coin, I think, every single week with these two guys. One of them's probably going to have a pretty good game each week. And Brock Purdy ranks as a top 10 QB this week too. But the Panthers, their passing attack is coming off Bryce Young's career best game. And the 49ers defense is atrocious. They just allowed all-time NFL records to Jacoby Brissett. Bryce Young had 448 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns against a good Falcons secondary last week. He was QB2, 31.8 points. 45 pass attempts, completed 31 of those. Tedderone McMillan, he had his best game of the season. Again, in a pretty tough matchup. In this 49ers defense, their secondary is so banged up. This is a really bad secondary. Like I really think Bryce Young keeps it going here versus the 49ers. And Tedderone McMillan is an absolute smash start. I think his props are really, really strong in this game too. Rico Barry Sanders Dowdle, he's come back down to earth a little bit, but he's startable in this game too. He's had at least 15 points still in 3 straight. He's in a really, really strong role. He played 83% of the snaps. Last week, we talked about this with Chase Brown. Guys, there's not really running backs playing over 80% of the snaps on average this season. There's 2 of them. It's McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor. When you have running backs that can get to that 80% snap share in a given week, I mean, you're starting those guys. And this week, that's Chase Brown. This week, that is Rico Barry Sanders Dowdle. And then Jalen Coker and Leggett. I'm in one league, a 14-team league. I'm trying out both these guys in my lineup. I think it's actually a pretty high floor play. One of these guys has a pretty good chance to go over 15 points this week. I think these guys combine over 20 points. They combined for over 30 last week. 4 for 52 for Jalen Coker. It was his second highest snap percentage of the season. He's had 4 targets in back-to-back games, and the 49ers have not been a good secondary. I do think Leggett's ceiling is higher. He was on the injury report this week, but he's off it now. He only played 55% of snaps last week. We'll probably see that go up. There was some coach speak this week saying they're trying to get the ball to him more. He had 8 targets last week, 18% target share. I like Coker and Leggett as sleepers this week if you're desperate at receiver. I do think the 49ers win this game because I do not think their offense can be stopped by the Panthers. But I like the Panthers to cover the spread. I like Bryce Young higher than we have him ranked too. All right, let's hop over to the wide receiver ranks here. We're going to have Sam's joining live in about 30 minutes. That is every single player in every single relevant game, every single relevant player in every single game, my thoughts on every single game. Reminder, I think I got to 2 of these 3, the free player props in the live today. Guys, we have been cashing these. We're at 64% on the free props. We went 1 for 1 last week. The Burden one cashed in the first half. Woody Marks had his highest touch total of the season last week and didn't get there. But we were on, I think the process there was actually good. So I'm going John Mechie over 24.5 receiving yards. The Jets, for the second time this season, are going to have a quarterback that can actually complete passes. The last time Tyrod Taylor played, he completed over 60% of his passes, around 65%. John Mechie played the highest snap percentage of any receiver for the Jets last week, 83% snap share. He only had 3 targets, still beat this line with 45 yards. He caught all 3 of those targets. John Mechie can beat this line in a single catch. I think he's getting at least 3 targets in this game. He could easily go 6, 7 in this game at that snap share. And with the projected game environment, the Jets are projected to lose by 14 points to the Ravens. All right, so that's my number 1 here, John Mechie over 24.5 receiving yards. Number 2 is David Montgomery to score against the Giants. Run defense. There's 2 games in the next 4 days for the Lions. You cannot give Jahmyr Gibbs, after Sunday night, you give Jahmyr Gibbs 73% of the snaps. You're not giving him 73% of the snaps in this game. It's going to go down close to 50%. Montgomery is going to get into this game. This game might not be close. I think Winston's underrated, interesting for DFS. I'll get to that in a second. Only 6 carries for David Montgomery last week. I think he's got a really good chance to get in the end zone here against one of the worst run defenses in the NFL right now. And then I also like Geno Smith's passing attempts under. I do not have faith in the Raiders to sustain drives in this game. He had 42 pass attempts in his last game, but 26 the game before that in a more comparable matchup against the Broncos. We saw that game against the Chiefs a few weeks back in, a comparable defense to the Browns. Geno had 16 pass attempts in that game, and they ran like no plays in that game. This offensive line is atrocious. I don't think this Raiders offense has any hope against the Browns defense. So this is my 3 free player props of the day: Mechie over yards, Montgomery to score, and Geno under pass attempts. My 3 favorite stacks in DFS this week, this is a really interesting DFS slate. You got that Eagles-Cowboys game, and that Eagles passing attack is interesting to stack, I think, but I want to lean into Saquon, I think, this week over the passing attack for DFS purposes. And it's hard for me to ignore this Jameis Winston stack. I do like, as I already mentioned, Montgomery to score. I think he's got a ceiling outcome of multiple touchdowns in this game. And then we get Jameis Winston. I was very impressed by Winston last week. I thought there was no hope for the Giants in this game. And this was like the stone cold, I think, worst scenario for Winston in his first start. He has, I think it was the first game for the new coach with Winston starting and no Slayton and no Malik Neighbors. You got half the offensive line injured. And you're playing in 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts against Green Bay. And still, Winston sustained drives, completed 19 passes, 65% completion percentage, threw over 200 yards, and got a rushing touchdown too. And now Slayton's back. And now they're playing in a dome against an easier defense. The Lions defense hasn't been bad. They did look pretty good against the Eagles, but I think Winston's got like legit 40-plus pass attempt ceiling here in this game. I like his pass attempts over, honestly, in this one too. And I think the stack with Wan'Dale, the stack with Theo Johnson, or the stack with Slayton is pretty interesting. That is going to be my main DFS lineup I'll show here in a second. And I like to bring back with Montgomery. I don't hate the bring back with Amon-Ra or Jameson Williams either. I think at least one of those guys will smash the Giants secondary as well. I like the Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers stack. This feels like the type of game where Lamar Jackson will just absolutely smash. There's every game left for the Ravens is must win to get into the playoffs. They're coming off two really tough matchups against the Vikings and the Browns. Before that, they're like cakewalk against the Dolphins, 4 passing touchdowns for Lamar. I think this game's going to be a lot more like that Dolphins game in week 9 than the games against the Vikings and the Browns week 10, week 11. And Zay Flowers, he's been allergic to the end zone. And his touchdown rate is near the lowest in the league. 1.9% touchdown rate for Zay Flowers. That's wide receiver 93 in touchdown rate. He's top 12 in yards. He's got 14th most catches per game among receivers, and he has 1 touchdown. And that came in week 1. But if he can get in the end zone, I mean, he's going to have a good, I think, reception and yards total here, especially if Tyrod can keep this game close. Like I think he might be able to, like closer than the spread of 14 points. Then we could see a huge game here from Zay Flowers. The Jets secondary is not what it once was earlier this season. The whole Jets defense, I think, is much worse than it was earlier this season. Steph Diggs, he went for 20 points last game out. The Pats receivers combined for 30 points. Judy, we called him on the live. He was the free player prop back in week 10. We cashed on Judy. Like Jerry Judy, I was confidently playing against the Jets a couple weeks ago. He went 6, 78, and 1. So yeah, I like the Zay Lamar Jackson stack. I don't hate tossing Isaiah Likely or Andrews into that stack too. And you can bring it back with one of those Jets receivers. Like one of these Jets receivers, guys, is going to be a really interesting sleeper this week. A.D. Mitchell, Isaiah Williams, or John Mechie. All 3 of these guys are going to play over half the snaps for the Jets. They're going to be getting crushed. And the Ravens also play a lot of man coverage, which all 3 of those receivers historically have done much, much better against. Guys, if you're just joining the YouTube Live, smash the like button. We're still just getting started here on this Week 12 Sunday morning. It is a fantastic, fantastic day to be alive. It is the best day of the week, and we're about to get to literally hundreds of start sits. So many difficult start sits. I'm pumped to get into it. I like Trevor Henderson in the Pats defense stack here as well. I don't know how we bench Hendo. I think he's probably going to be much lower owned than we've seen the last couple of weeks with Ramondre back, but there's still a really high ceiling here. And I don't know how the Patriots don't give Henderson more work than Ramondre in this game, and Ramondre's first game back. Just such a good matchup here too versus the Bengals. Really good chance at a big play in this one. Okay, let me pull up my official DFS lineup of the day. I'm going with the Jameson Winston, Wan'Dale, Theo Johnson stack. I'm bringing it back with both Amon-Ra and David Montgomery. So I'm really stacking this Lions-Giants game. The Giants should have beat the Packers last week in 40-mile-an-hour winds against the Green Bay Packers defense. I don't see why we aren't high on the ceiling, at least here for Winston. I really could see 40-plus pass attempts. The Lions' run defense, they rank number 1 versus running backs this season. I mean, you gotta give James Winston a chance in this game. And then I'm playing the two elite running backs here, Bijan and Saquon. I think both have a pretty good chance over 30 points. Today, I'm going with Luther Burden. I mean, I've been so high on Luther Burden all season that it feels like I need to find a spot for him this week in my DFS lineup when we know, I mean, this is the first week all season, and I've called it a few times in the past couple of weeks. And I think in week 3, I was on it too. But this is the first time all season, like we just know Luther Burden's in for his biggest role of the season. Like 100%. He's gonna set a season high in snap percentage. He's going over half the snaps. Like this is basically what the coaching staff has already told us. And he also has an amazing matchup here versus the Steelers. They rank dead last in fantasy points allowed to receivers. I think they've been a little bit better than that of late. Their defensive line is still strong, which I'm like a little bit nervous about here for the Bears. Bears run offense has been pretty successful, but you're giving me the high snap percentage of the season in a great matchup for Luther Burden. The ceiling is there, guys. The ceiling is there with his talent profile. The Browns defense, I feel very conflicted about for DFS because I feel like their ownership is going to come in so high. And anytime there's a defense with high ownership in these tournaments on DraftKings and FanDuel, like generally you want to fade those guys because defense is largely random. Like you just need some low scoring defense to score a touchdown. But like I said, I'm on the Geno Smith under pass attempts this week. I just do not think this Raiders offense has any hope against the Browns defense. I'm willing to kind of eat the chalk on the Browns defense because they're priced pretty low. They're like a mid-price defense against the Raiders. I just don't really understand that at all. So yeah, I'm going with the Browns defense, even though their ownership is going to be high. I think I differentiated in this lineup going with the Winston stack enough not to worry too much about the ownerships for the rest of these guys. All right, that's the DFS lineup for today. Again, Weatherman Sam, no concerning weather today. Tons of dome games today as well. Guys, if you have not checked out the WalterPicks app yet, I really do not know what you are waiting for. It is a free app. I've spent the last 5+ years of my life helping build this app. And we're in the point in the season where you're going to want to use the start sit tool to at least double check your start sit decisions in this absolutely critical time of the fantasy season. You can find that in the YouTube description in the app stores if you search for WalterPicks. All right, guys, it's time to get to the start sit segment of the live. We're going to have Sam's joining in like 15 minutes. I'm going to get to a ton of start sits, I promise. I'm going to try to cover like every player that we're seeing a lot in the chat. I'm going to pull up the rankings consistently too. Let me pull up the receiver rankings here. I think there's going to be, I feel like this is a week, in my opinion, I'm going to disagree with some of the rankings we have in the WalterPicks app, like more than I have. We'll see about that. We'll see. Luther Burden versus Jordan Addison, I think, is one of these where like I really want to make the case for Luther Burden here. Let's pull this up. We got Addison projected 1.7 points higher. The ceiling looks higher for Addison. Oh God, yeah, I'm going Luther Burden. I'm going Luther Burden over Addison. Personally, I'm going with Burden. Again, I just talked about why I'm playing him in DFS. He had an 18% target share last week. Addison had a 22% target share. Like the target shares are close. The matchup's way better for Luther Burden. I really won't be surprised if Luther Burden's role is better than Addison's. I would start Luther Burden over Jordan Addison. I don't think I'd start him over Mooney. I would start him over Juwan Jennings, I think, and Dobbs and Worthy. Alec Pierce probably. Ricky Pearsall maybe. I feel like Luther Burden should be like around here if you're watching live on TikTok. I'm going Luther Burden over Addison. I'm really high on Burden as a player. I think we're under projecting his ceiling a bit too, just because we haven't seen him in a full role yet this season, where we have for Addison. Like we've seen big games from Addison. Super tough one though. There's some really, really difficult wide receiver start sits, I think, this week. Dak or Goff, then K. Dotton or Alec Pierce in PPR. Oh man. I mean, Alec Pierce, we pulled up his game logs. We pull up his game logs, I feel like, every single Sunday morning. And it's like he's clearly one of the most underrated receivers in the league, both in NFL and fantasy terms. But it's still Otton. It's still K. Dotton over Pierce. This does feel like a floor ceiling decision to me a little bit. I would argue Pierce's ceiling is higher. Not a great matchup, obviously, against the Chiefs. And K. Dotton, he does have a pretty good matchup here versus the Rams. A.J. Barner had 10 catches for 70 yards versus the Rams. Last week, we saw Cade go for 9 catches a couple weeks ago. Godwin's back, but I still do like Cade, cardio Cade, I think, there. And then I'm going Goff over Dak. I really like Goff this week. Yeah, I've Goff in a full tier above Dak. The Giants defense is so bad. I mean, they're really, really bad. And they're playing in a dome. Goff is back in a dome. I think people are underrating Goff because he hasn't looked great in the last couple of games. But historically, he's done like much worse when not in a dome. And the next 6 games, the rest of the fantasy season is in a dome for Jared Goff. Happy Sunday, Sam. Happy Sunday to every single one of you, man. It is the best day of the week. Shout out to everyone who's tuned in right now. We're going to get to a ton of start sits now the rest of the live. Bam Knight, Trey Tucker, or Darnell Mooney. I think this one's Mooney, man. Let me see what the receiver rankings have. I don't want to start Bam Knight. We have Michael Carter projected ahead of Bam Knight, and I think that's like a tough call because Bam Knight should lead the backfield in carries. He's going to probably lead the backfield in snap percentage, but it's Michael Carter that's probably going to lead the backfield in catches and in targets. And it's not a great matchup for Bam Knight against the Jags. You got Trey Tucker in like an every down role, but against the Browns, I have no faith in the Raiders offense to sustain drives. I've already talked about that a lot. And then you have Darnell Mooney. Like, what's the floor for Mooney in this game? We have Darnell Mooney projected for 10.9 this week. He has not gone over 10 once this season. And I still feel pretty good about the projection. This is not some random guy we've never seen produce in fantasy. This is a guy who missed week 1 with an injury. He missed week 6 with an injury. The target share has actually been consistent for Darnell Mooney. He's at an 18% target share this season. Those are almost all games with Drake London. The one game without Drake London, where Kyle Pitts had a 30% target share, Mooney only had a 13% target share in that game. Weird stuff, man. Did he get hurt in that game? No, he played 90% of snaps. It's not a terrible matchup here versus the Saints. The Falcons are underdogs in this game too, man. I'm going Mooney. I really think Mooney is not a bad play here in week 12. Start Watson, Tracy, or Pearsall standard. Yeah, in the standard league, I think you kind of have to go Tracy. I think you have to go the running backs in these standard leagues. Emmanuel Wilson or Jaylen Warren. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to wait and see if Josh Jacobs is playing. If Josh Jacobs is not playing, we do have Emmanuel Wilson projected higher here. I think this is pretty close though, because this is a good matchup for Jaylen Warren. Both sides of the start sit actually are impacted by the 2 pieces of injury news we're waiting for: Josh Jacobs and Aaron Rodgers. I don't think the Rodgers stuff like impacts that much though. If anything, it probably just lowers like the total scoring projection a little bit for the whole Steelers offense. Way easier matchup though for Jaylen Warren here than Emmanuel Wilson. Honestly, I could talk myself into Jaylen Warren over Wilson. But definitely if Josh Jacobs plays, you're benching Wilson. I think even if Josh Jacobs doesn't play, I might lean Jaylen Warren here. Kenneth Gainwell's getting a ton of the receiving work. Jaylen Warren got banged up last week, but it's a good matchup for him. Man, this game log last week, the last couple of weeks is actually pretty scary to look at. If Josh Jacobs doesn't play, you got to go Emmanuel Wilson here, looking deeper at those game logs. It's Wilson over Warren if Josh Jacobs does not play. If Josh Jacobs does play, then he's definitely not startable. Rodgers is out. We're getting this from the chat. Let me refresh here. Mason Rudolph will start. Will Howard will be the backup. Aaron Rodgers is out in week 12. That's one of the 2 big pieces of injury news we've been waiting for. And we're going to get this updated, see how this affects the projections at all. Some injuries to note, though, this week, talking about this Jaylen Warren one. The Bears are without their top 3 linebackers in this game today. Man, I mean, I think they get some pieces in the secondary back too this week, but their top 3 linebackers are out. The Lions get a Giants defense without their top corner and multiple other starters on defense. The Bengals are without their 2 best edge players and their 2nd best corner. The Pats offense is not going to get stopped today. The Cardinals, they're missing one of their best defensive ends, and they might be missing a cornerback or 2 outside of Travis Hunter. The Panthers get the 49ers defense without basically everybody. And the Panthers are also missing their starting linebacker against Christian McCaffrey. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers is out. We'll get the app updated for that right now. Michael Carter or Sean Tucker? Yeah, Mike, I think you got to go Sean Tucker over Michael Carter. I think the ceiling is higher. The floors, I feel like, are similar. I don't feel good in my stomach starting Michael Carter here in week 12. Need to start 3 PPR. Genty, Kelsey, Sean Tucker, Emmanuel Wilson, and Judkins. Thank you. You're starting Kelsey here, I think. Man, if Josh Jacobs is out, I think you go Emmanuel Wilson. And I think it's Judkins. Wow, we got Sean Tucker ahead of Judkins. God, that feels kind of gross too. I think I might go Judkins there. It's a better matchup for Judkins. I think more touches for Judkins probably. I think I'm going Judkins here. I don't like Shadur, but I'm going Judkins over Sean Tucker. So yeah, that's how I would play it. And if Emmanuel Wilson doesn't play, I mean, if Josh Jacobs does play, then I'd go Sean Tucker over Emmanuel Wilson. Kareem Hunt or Cade Otton. I'm going Cardio Cade, I think, over Kareem Hunt. I like Cardio Cade this week, guys, with what we saw from AJ Barner last week in that same matchup. I'm playing Alec Pierce over Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt is the starting running back for the Chiefs this week, again, with Pacheco out. I don't feel great about him still. He's still a touchdown-dependent running back who he has scored in 3 straight games. Not a great matchup here against the Colts, though. I don't have a ton of faith in the rushing volume for the Chiefs. I think he had like 80% rush share we were looking at. He only had 13 carries or 11 carries or something. I mean, the Chiefs are going to lean on the pass. Mooney or Tracy in a half PPR. Man, half PPR makes this a lot tougher. And this is part of the reason the WalterPicks app is a complete cheat code in terms of the best fantasy tools that are out there, because it's going to account for all your league settings. And half PPR makes this, I think, way closer. Like PPR, I think there's a decent argument for Mooney. And half PPR, I think that argument gets a lot worse. Let's take a look here. Tracy is such a tough start sit for me this week because the matchup's tough. The role is okay. Maybe even call it good. And the talent is good. Yeah, PPR, it's Tracy. So half PPR, it's going to be Tracy by even more. Yeah, it's Tracy. I'm going to be forced to start Tracy in one of my leagues I mentioned earlier. I got to start him or Michael Carter in a league where I need RJ Harvey to come back. And he's on bye. Good morning, Sam. Should I play Stafford or Lamar? Yeah, I thought we might get this question in the live today because I was looking at our ranks here, and I think I disagree with our ranks on this one too. We have it super close, to be clear. We got Stafford at 19.9, Lamar at 19.8. Sam said on the live last week he has a rule when it comes to fantasy football that you don't bench Lamar Jackson. And last week that didn't work out great. Only at 6.7. This is a really good spot, though, for Lamar against the Jets. They're playing at home. They're 14-point favorites. I think the Jets offense has like a more of a real chance to keep this game competitive than usual. I'm going Lamar. I'm personally playing Lamar over Stafford, but it is super close, and I really like Stafford this week too. I mean, they're both in tier 1 for me. They're both the bottom of tier 1 for me, only behind Mahomes, May, and Hurts. Like, definitely have a chance to be the wide receiver, the DQB1, both these guys. Jalen Warren, Goddard, Hunt, or Trey Tucker. God, I think you go Jalen Warren here. Do I go Michael Wilson or Michael Pittman? Yeah, here we are with the Michael Wilson stuff in week 12, and it's Michael Wilson. And like, I actually don't even know if it's that close. The only receivers who are projecting ahead of Michael Wilson right now are Devontae Adams, Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, George Pickens, Igbuka, Jefferson, and everyone up from there. We're playing Michael Wilson over Jameson Williams, over Stephon Diggs, Adunze, Pittman, Metcalf, Wanda, Olave, Flowers. I mean, it's like, after last week, it is a good matchup here too for Michael Wilson. The Jags have not been good against outside receivers, and Pittman has a tough matchup. As good as Pittman's been, I mean, Michael Wilson, like, you kind of have to start him. You kind of have to. He was the wide receiver 1 last week. He had 15 catches, guys, on 18 targets. I mean, there's no world where Pittman is doing any of those numbers. Josh Jacobs ruled out. We're getting from the chat. Chat, you're on the news today. Appreciate this. And Josh Jacobs is officially out as we had projected. So we were wrong about the Rodgers one, right about the Jacobs one. So starting QBs today include Mason Rudolph, Joe Flacco, Kirk Cousins, Tyrod Taylor, James Winston, Shadur Sanders, and Jacoby Brissett, just like we all expected back in week 1. Jacobs is out. That means Emmanuel Wilson is in. You got to start Emmanuel Wilson. Breaking news onto the live. Jacobs is out. Put Emmanuel Wilson in. And we just talked about Wilson versus Jalen Warren. It's Wilson over Jalen Warren. Now, I think it is. Emmanuel Wilson should get 60, 70% of the backfield. He had a 71% snap share last week. 11 carries, 1 target in that game against the Giants. He did score as well. It's a tough matchup here versus the Vikings, but the role should be really good. And Josh Jacobs, he should be back for Thanksgiving. Yeah, Swift and Monungai, they did combine for 20. Henry only had 11. Oh, gosh, man, the matchup here is tough versus the Vikings for Emmanuel Wilson. There should be some receiving role still for Wilson. Honestly, that Wilson versus Jalen Warren question is going to haunt me. I think that's a really tough one. Good morning, Sam. Yoshabas, Booty, Alec Pierce, then Rachaad White, Knight, or Michael Carter. This is a very difficult Week 12 start-sit slate. This one I would go with Alec Pierce over Booty. I don't think you can start any non-Steph Diggs receiver for the Pats. I'm pretty nervous to start. I think they all have some type of a ceiling. Mac Daddy Hollins, Alec Pierce, not Alec Pierce, Booty, and Demario Douglas, like all have somewhat of a ceiling because the Bengals secondary is atrocious. But I think just good luck guessing the role for these outside receivers. Mac Hollins has had like a significant role, but with Booty back, tough to say what the split's going to be. And then Yoshabas, I do not have faith in. So yeah, I'd go Alec Pierce like pretty easily there of those three. And then Rachaad White, Bam Knight, and Michael Carter. Yeah, we have Michael Carter projected ahead of Bam Knight. I don't feel great about either of them. I agree with the projection, I think, because of the receiving role. And Rachaad White's scary against the Rams. He's not going to get a lot of carries. God, is this one Michael Carter? Oh, man. Such a tough start sit here. I think I'm okay going with the app on this one and saying Michael Carter. I had Laporta, but he went down, so it's Cardio Cade, a good start. Have Loveland as well, but I'm not so sure about him. Been trying to trade for Kittle too, but it ain't working. Yeah, it is tough out there in the trade streets these days to get people to make trades. Everyone's terrified to make trades. I do feel good about Cardio Cade today. I think Colson Loveland's got a ceiling too, but I prefer Cardio Cade Otten over Colson Loveland. Good morning. Need 2 of the 3. Half PPR, Travion Henderson, or Ramondre, and Darius Slayton, or pick up Burt. Just play the 2 Pats running backs. Yeah, just play them both. You're going to lock in at least 30 points against the Bengals by just playing both Pats running backs. I'm fine with that. I probably would play Burden over Slayton personally. I'm very curious to hear Sam's thoughts on the Giants receivers this week since he nailed Isaiah Hodgins last week after nailing Jalen Naylor the week before that. So I wonder what obscure receiver Sam's is going to bring us here in Week 12 because it seems like there's plenty of them to pick from maybe in Week 12. I'll pull up the tight end ranks here. And speak of the devil, good timing to bring up Sam. How are you here, man? Week 12. How are things?
Not too bad. Ready for this interesting Sunday. I think everyone in the world, unless you're in Missouri or you're, maybe a fan of the Chiefs for the last 7 years, maybe, is rooting for the Colts very hard today. And I hope they get it done.
This feels like, Sam's, to me, at least, in my own leagues and just preparing for the Sunday morning lives and the start that we've already seen. This feels like the toughest start-sit week of the season. Just across the board. I mean, there's some really close calls and some difficult start-sit decisions and some really gross guys to be considering. I mean, I don't know if you just saw that start-sit before you hopped on of Michael Carter, Rachaad White, and Bam Knight. I mean, I said Michael Carter. I don't feel great about it, but I think it's like reasonable. But yeah, there's some really tough running back start-sits in that range of the running backs. I actually think the receivers, though, this week too, there's some really tough calls. I'm arguing for Luther Burden over some guys we have ranked ahead of Luther Burden in the WalterPicks app. So we'll talk through it all, Sam's. But yeah, definitely the entire NFL. We have a chance to eliminate the Chiefs basically from the playoffs today in a 3-point spread. They're only favored by 3. The Colts have obviously been really good this season. I did say I'm taking the Chiefs in that one. I think when I talked through that game, because I mean, over the last 5 years, like I don't really not take the Chiefs in playoff games. And this is a playoff game for them. So, I do have some confidence in them. I didn't talk a lot about Xavier Worthy, but I actually think he is a little underrated, interesting sleeper this week in that spot against the Colts. I know he was questionable coming into this one, but I think there's at least a real ceiling there that we haven't seen yet this season from Worthy in a playoff matchup against the Colts. But Sam's, any takes you got for us before we hop into some of these start-sits?
I will start again with a receiver. You just said, do I have an obscure receiver? I would never dare call this guy obscure, but he really has not produced recently. And I've been talking about him all week, and it's like a little bit of a gut thing, but I also think this is a perfect spot for him. I think Rashid Shaheed's going to have a Rashid Shaheed week this week against the Titans. I think it's the perfect spot for them to get him involved. He hasn't really been involved very much with Seahawks, and I think this is the perfect, like, Sam Darnold, super efficient, get the ball down the field. No one on the Titans is stopping Rashid Shaheed if he goes deep. So I think Rashid Shaheed is going to be my wide receiver that's kind of off the radar for this week. So start up Rashid Shaheed if you need a boom play, I think.
I like it. Yeah, I did touch on Shaheed in an earlier start sit, I think. And there's definitely a ceiling here this week. I'm with you on this one. The Titans have been arguably the worst defense against outside receivers in the NFL this season. Shaheed's playing purely on the outside for the Seahawks. I mean, there's certainly a floor with all these obscure receivers. Shaheed's no different here, but like they just might not need to throw a ton in this game against the Titans. And JSN's obviously going to have a big role still. But yeah, we've seen tons of boundary receivers smash. Quentin Johnson went over 15. Nico, Pittman, Alec Pierce, he had 69 yards on only 2 catches. Booty and Matt Collins both went over 45 yards against the Titans. Trey Tucker had 5 catches for 70 yards. I mean, these are guys that play pretty similar roles. And Shaheed's one of the most efficient outside receivers in the NFL. So you got one of the most efficient outside receivers against one of the worst defenses against outside receivers. I agree about the spot here in the ceiling. Definitely interesting props. I think his prop lines are in the mid 30s. I think it's like 33 maybe. Interesting prop there too. I think if you're in on that game being at all close, which I'm not sure about. On the other side of that game and the matchup for the Titans offense is also one of these like just maybe the best matchup the Seahawks could ask for. You know, with an offense allowing the most sacks in league, a defense that the Seahawks are number 1 in fantasy points per game defensively, and they are generating the highest pressure rate in the league, I believe, still. So yeah, nervous for the Titans offense without all their receivers and no offensive line. But if this game is at least close through like 2.5, 3 quarters, yeah, I'd like the Shaheed call for sure. Any other takes you got for us before we jump to some start sits?
Yeah, just back to the Shaheed thing for a second. Like I was saying a second ago, Darnold's been really efficient in games where they dominate, and I think that's the path to Shaheed's success. I was gonna say, like, I don't see a single world where the Titans can compete. Like, even if they wanted to, I just don't see the world where they can. But yeah, there's a few other guys that I think have been what's the word? Despised by the fantasy community that I'm in on this week. I think this is a David Montgomery game today against the Giants. I'd be shocked if David Montgomery didn't get into the end zone. The Giants can't tackle. They can't defend the run. And Dan Campbell's been a little annoying about this, but he said they want to get David Montgomery more touches. So I'm going to have to take him at his word on that. He kind of said the same thing about JMO. That worked out. So it hasn't been the same with Isaac Tesla, but that's okay. So I like David Montgomery today against the Giants. And in the same backfield, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is he's going to go scorched earth. Like, he's not just going to do well. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is I think both running backs are going to combine for like 50 points. Like, I genuinely feel like that's going to happen.
Yeah, the Giants defense has no hope at stopping this rushing attack. I'm definitely with you on that. We have Gibbs up at running back 3, and I definitely think Montgomery is more involved this week. Last week was the season high snap percentage for Gibbs, 73% of the snaps. And they have a game in 4 days on Thanksgiving. I mean, you can't just that alone. You can't do this in back-to-back games when you have a game 4 days, a bigger game. That's going to be projected way closer, a divisional game. And the last time, the game before this against the Commanders, Gibbs played 50% of snaps in that one, went for 38 points. Finishes the running back. He only needs 50% of the snaps to go scorched earth, 142 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and he had 3 touchdowns in that game on half the snaps. And yeah, I definitely do agree and believe that Dan Campbell's going to get Montgomery the ball more. Super good chance at a touchdown. He's one of the free player props on the live. He's also in my DFS lineup where I'm going with James Winston stacked in that game. Where I'm like oddly excited for Winston here in Week 12. I think partially because I was so low on him last week in that game against the Packers. I thought there was no world where that game was going to be close because it was 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts against Green Bay. Like, I think it was like the worst scenario almost for his first start. And he still completed 65% of his passes, threw for over 200 yards. I thought he looked like pretty good in a tough matchup. Easier matchup, I think, today in a dome. Lions defense has been like good recently, but yeah, I got like weird confidence in the James Winston stacks at DFS. And obviously there's so many Lions options for the bringbacks as well. But yeah, I do like that one a lot. Would you go Montgomery or Kyron Williams today? We just had a comment. Why is Kyron Williams ranked as running back 19 crying face? And I get that it feels low. I mean, the honest answer why he's running back 19 is there's 18 running backs projected ahead of him. Yeah, he still projects pretty good at running back at 12.6 points. He has been over that in like most of his last 5 games, 5 or 6 games. But it's ultimately he needs to score, and he doesn't have a receiving role, much of a receiving role. Blake Corum's playing a third of the snaps too. But there's just a lot of good running back options this week. Like, would you start him over Kenneth Walker against the Titans? I'm not sure I would do that. Maybe. I don't think I'd start him over Montgomery. Aaron Jones is close, but he's like in a workhorse role now. I think I'd go Aaron Jones in the revenge game. Jalen Warren against the Bears feels pretty good. The Bears are missing their 3 starting linebackers in this game. Maybe you could argue Genty should be lower in that matchup versus the Browns, but his receiving role has been pretty good, and he's not coming off the field. It's like over 80% of the snaps. So yeah, and then all these guys in up, I think are like pretty reasonable over Kyren. I don't know if you agree with this running back 19 spot for Kyren. Would you play Montgomery over him?
I don't think I necessarily agree. I love Kyren this week in a lot of my daily drafts, a lot of my like weekly drafts. I'm taking Kyren. I think it's just a great spot for him to score a touchdown or two. And David Montgomery's a tough one. I trust Kyren more, even though it's a good matchup for David Montgomery. And I definitely would go Kyren over Genty. I feel like Genty's just primed to be bad today. Like I feel like he's got to catch 5 balls. Like I genuinely think he's got to catch like 5 passes, which is possible, but I'm not super convinced it'll be that the case.
He's done that in 2 of his last 3 games. The snap percentage was actually down a little bit last week to 73%. But yeah, he's had a 20% target share in back-to-back games. He only had 6 carries last week. I do have like no confidence in this Raiders offense in this game. That's part of the reason I'm going with the Geno pass attempts under here with one of the free player props. But I'm fine. I'm fine with that. I agree. I'm kind of nervous about Genty, and I'd be okay moving him down below Kyren Williams, but ahead of, I think, Tyrone Tracy still. Tracy Sams, I think, is like one of the most difficult starts it's the week for me. I know Seth was saying, no BS Fantasy, calling him a bench this week, and I get it. The Lions are number 1 versus running backs this season, but Tracy looked good last week. And he's like a talented player that I have some faith in the talent profile. He's still splitting work with Singletary, which is rough, but I mean, I got to make a call between him and Michael Carter in one of my leagues. I'm going with him over Michael Carter. I just like it. To me, they're very not comparable talent profiles. I don't know which way you go in that starts it, Sam. So give me any hope for Tyrone Tracy this week.
I think if you watched, and granted, not a lot of people did, but if you watched the Giants-Packers game last week, I think it'd be very difficult to say, I'm going to bench Tyrone Tracy. I mean, the Packers are a good defensive matchup, and he performed well. Right. And I kind of think the Giants will be playing much more catch-up than they were last week in a competitive game. I think the Lions are going to kind of put the foot on the gas and go for the throat here. And so I think Tyrone Tracy plays a lot of that game script instead of Devin Singletary. So I definitely go Tracy over Michael Carter. That's not really that's just a workload thing. I think Carter's splitting more work than Tracy will be.
Yeah.
So
how about ETN? Would you go ETN over Tracy? We have ETN kind of low in the ranks too. He did benefit from Tutin's ankle injury last week, but he has been playing well. I mean, he's had at least 15 points now in 3 straight games.
I think I would. I think I'd honestly go Tutin over Tracy as well. I think I'd go both of them. I think you could start both ETN and Tutin in the same game. I think with Brenton Strange coming back, a lot of people are like, oh, man, the pass game, he's a target for him. But what people don't realize is like Brenton Strange was a blocking machine before he got hurt. And he and Quentin Morris are both excellent blockers. So I think the run game is going to look great today against the Cardinals. But yeah, Tutin's a little bit more risky, but he's pretty electric.
Yeah, I'm excited for Tutin too. I'm starting him in multiple leagues against where some of our ranks have him as well. And I think one of the tougher things about Tutin is the context of last week, where he was leading the backfield in carries and yards. He scored, and then he got hurt and missed the 4th quarter, so the snap percentage doesn't look great. The carry total ended up being under ETN's. McCaffrey last week went for 35 points against the Arizona Cardinals. Their defense had no hope at stopping him. He went 6.2 yards per carry in that one. Yeah, Tutin looked really good. I hope the ankle is fine. He's off the injury report. That's the only like small fear I have, because he did miss the 4th quarter with an ankle injury last week. But yeah, I like Tutin too. I would play Tutin, I think, over Sharp, over Kamara, over Spears, over Bam Knight, over Rashad White. I don't know if I could play him over Montre. I'm fine playing him over Michael Carter though. Maybe even Kareem Hunt. Maybe even Sean Tucker, who I was really in on last week. We hit that last week on this live, Sam's, but it's such a different matchup. I mean, it's like polar opposite. Maybe going from the best to the worst matchup. Like there's an argument that is the case here for Sean Tucker. So I'm a lot less in on him against the Rams, though it does seem like the role is still going to be growing. But he's not going to catch like many passes. He caught a receiving touchdown last week. That's probably going to be his only receiving touchdown the rest of the season. Like he's not a receiving back. So yeah, I'm a little nervous about him too. So maybe I'd go Tootin. I agree. I like the Etienne Tootin duo as well here. Any other takes you got for us before we jump back into these start sits?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it a second ago, but like I'm out on Sean Tucker this week. I'm not starting Sean Tucker if I don't have to. I mean, it's hard after a great performance, but the game script I feel is just so conducive to him failing. So if I can bench Sean Tucker, I am. But yeah, it's hard at this point in the season. Like you need to make these decisions, and maybe you ride the hot hand, but depending on your roster, Sean Tucker is extremely difficult to start.
I'm gonna refresh the app here so we get the Rodgers news updated in the app.
Yep.
Any other tweaks we've made since I started the live. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm definitely. I mean, I was very in on Sean Tucker. Oh, hey, look who it is. I was very in on Sean Tucker last week. That worked out very well, but I did actually start him in a couple leagues, a couple deeper leagues, and in a DFS lineup too. But yeah, I'm a lot more worried this week for sure. We got an interesting start sit here. We'll jump to before we get back to some of any other takes you have, Sam's. Injuries killing him here for the playoff push. This is it, by the way, Sam's. Like this is it. We work all year to try to dominate our fantasy leagues. We've put so much time into this, and this is it. This is the final stretch where we really have to try to lock in and make the right start sits. Like the trade deadline is passed in the next 24 hours in almost every single league. I'll be working the trade lines in a lot of my leagues over the next 24 hours, but like these are the start sits that can really be what makes you make the playoffs or not. We got Bam Knight, Parker Washington, Goddard, Michael Carter at flex, also half PPR and full PPR. To me, this one's Parker Washington. I think I'd go Parker Washington here over everyone else. I don't hate the matchup here for Parker Washington. He only had 2 targets last week, and I get that Strange is back, but I think he has a very real chance to like do better than Jacoby Myers, who projects a little bit ahead of him in this spot. He was averaging like 8 targets a game in his previous 3 games, and there's no Brian Thomas, no Travis Hunter still. But in half PPR, this gets a lot murkier. I think like Bam Knight maybe enters the conversation. I'm gonna actually pull these projections up. I don't know if you have a gut call on this starts it, but I think in half PPR I probably would go Bam Knight over Michael Carter.
I think with this question in particular, I think I'm going to go with the one person you didn't say. I think I'd go with Dallas Goedert against the Cowboys. I feel like he's got such a good chance to score a touchdown, multiple touchdowns. And for me, Parker Washington, I think he's the one who takes the like hardest hit from Brenton Strange being back. I think they're going to operate out of the same spot, and that's just not good for him. His last good fantasy performance, he had a punt return for a touchdown and like an incredibly insane like corner of the end zone catch. So it's kind of like is it fluky maybe? I was in on him when he was like the only guy, but now with Strange back, who knows if he plays the whole game? But I'm a little out on Parker Washington this week.
I have Strange himself as a bench this week just because it's his first game back, and no one is more excited for Strange to be back, I think, than me with all the best ball teams that I have him on. But I do think he's a worthwhile stash in a bunch of leagues. Strange was leading this team in receiving before the injury, with Hunter healthy, with Brian Thomas Jr. mostly healthy. He was leading the team in receiving before the injury. So definitely notable, I think, because Thomas is out and Travis Hunter's obviously out now too. So he could legit lead this team in receiving too down the stretch. But yeah, I'm okay going Goddard here. I think that's fair. You're really flipping a coin with Bam Knight, hoping one of them gets in the end zone, and good luck guessing which one it's going to be. Yeah, I think like this is also kind of a hot hand backfield where the way they play can really dictate the usage. Super tough to project. And they are underdogs in this game too. And Jacoby, Tom Brady, Brissett dropped back 57 times last week. 57 pass attempts, Sam's for Jacoby Brissett. I don't know how we're benching him in a lot of spots this week. Let's actually jump over to the QB ranks, guys. If you have QB start sits, send them in the chat. We're gonna hone in on some QB analysis here and some QB start sits because there's some pretty interesting QB decisions this week. I know the Lamar Jackson rule that you have, Sam's, didn't work out great last week where you just never.
No, it did not.
But I'm willing to go back to that rule this week. Like I'm starting over Stafford, for example. I don't think anyone's going to have to make a Lamar versus these 3 guys decision in their fantasy league. We did have a Lamar versus Stafford question earlier. This feels a lot like this Week 9 game versus the Dolphins, which I was actually at that Week 9 game versus the Dolphins for Lamar. than it does the last two games versus the Vikings and the Browns. I mean, this Jets defense is not good. They were okay before they traded their best two players away. Now they are not a good defense. Lamar's a 14-point favorite at home. These are the types of games where Lamar just absolutely shreds. I mean, Derrick Henry and Lamar are not going to be stopped, I don't think, in this game. I have like weird confidence in the Jets passing attack in this game too. I'm on the John Mechie over. He's actually my favorite free player prop of the day is John Mechie over 24.5 receiving yards. Here we are in week 12. Exactly what I thought. John Mechie's Jets receiving yards over from Tyrod Taylor is exactly how I would have drawn it up. But yeah, I'm not benching Lamar. I have tier 1 as Hurts, May, Mahomes, Stafford, Lamar. And then I have tier 2, everyone from Baker through Caleb Williams, which includes Jacoby Brissett. I feel pretty good about all those guys in those tiers. Hurts or May, seeing that one in the chat. Talk me through if you agree with those tiers and anything that stands out for you from these top tiers of QB.
I do agree. And what the funny thing about when I was saying that about Lamar, I think we were comparing him to Justin Herbert, I think it was. And Justin Herbert ended up doing terrible also. So it was technically the right choice, but it was like maybe by like 1 point. So, but Lamar, he annihilates bad teams. That's just historically what he does. The one concern is Derrick Henry takes all the touchdowns. That's the one concern. But I think they can get deep touchdowns. I think they can. He'll be fine. You play Lamar Jackson 100%. I think. And then I honestly, in that second tier, I love Jared Goff. I love Jacoby Brissett, and I love Caleb Williams. I love all three of those guys. I would be excited to play any of them. So I really do think Caleb's gonna have a great game. I think he's gonna get blitzed a lot, which there's some weaknesses in his game for sure, but one of his strengths is getting out and like rushing and getting yards and extending plays. And I think he can certainly do that in this game to high impact. So I love Caleb Williams.
Did have over 50 rushing yards in 2 of his last 3 games. Pretty surprising, honestly, to look back at those game logs. I don't think people think of Caleb Williams that way oftentimes. But yeah, the defensive line for the Steelers is good. The rest of the defense is atrocious. I mean, this season, this has been such a hard defense for me to pin down. Some weeks it feels like they're the worst defense in the league. Other weeks they look like a legit strong defense. And it really comes down to how teams are handling this defensive line. I think the more I've looked into the Steelers defense, but with Luther Burden playing more, like that does also just give me some optimism about Caleb Williams. I think they're finally playing their optimal rotation, where Luther Burden, I think, is locked in to his biggest role of the season. Like I'm very confident in the coaching staff, following up what they're saying that he's earned more work. He's going to continue to see a bigger role. Last week, he only played 44% of snaps, which was actually down a little bit from the week before, but he had 5 targets, which I think was the most of his season. Like I'm pretty excited for Luther Burden. He did find his way into my DraftKings lineup. I think there's like a pretty exciting ceiling there. The Steelers have allowed the most points to receivers this season. How about this question? Danny Dimes versus Jacoby Brissett. We got Daniel Jones ranked as QB 13. We got Jacoby up at QB 8. Would you start Daniel Jones? Would you start anyone here below Jacoby over Jacoby?
I would consider Caleb and Brock Purdy. Definitely would not start Daniel Jones over him. Just I feel like Daniel Jones in a matchup in Arrowhead against the Chiefs, that just sounds awful. And he could have a good game as he runs, but I'm not banking on that. I'd rather go with Jacoby, garbage time merchant, going to do his thing. So I'd go with Jacoby for sure.
Yeah, Jacoby versus Caleb. I'm leaning Jacoby in this spot too. I think I am excited about Caleb too. Sam said that one was probably close for him. It's a super tough call, but I mean, Jacoby Brissett completed 47 passes on 57 attempts last week, threw for 452 yards. I mean, it's so tough for me to bench that type of role. He gets the Jags, who did really well against Herbert, though, in their last game. I mean, I was in on Herbert in this game because they had just gotten cooked by Geno Smith and Davis Mills, and Herbert had by far his worst game of the season. And the Chargers' offense looked atrocious in this game. Does give me a tiny bit of fear about Brissett. Maybe you could argue Caleb's floor is better with that rushing stuff you said. I'd be comfortable with that. Would you go Caleb over Brissett, Sam, if you had to choose?
I think if you're looking for the safer play, go Jacoby Brissett. He's just been reliable. And I also don't foresee an outcome where this game is the same as the Chargers one. The Chargers O-line didn't show up to that game. They weren't blocking anybody. It was just Herbert was getting hit. It's like way too much. So Yeah, I think if you need the safer play, go Brissett. But if you're looking for like 30, if you need 30 out of a quarterback, I'd say Caleb Williams probably has a better chance. I honestly think Mason Rudolph, maybe I'll whisper this, but he might be able to run the Steelers offense better than Aaron Rodgers. So that game's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we were talking through the two big pieces of injury news we're waiting for with Jacobs and Rodgers. Jacobs is out and Rodgers is out. They both are out. We thought Rodgers was going to be in, but I was saying before that news, I don't know if that changes like too much, or the projections really like it's maybe mostly a lateral move, maybe a little bit of a downgrade projection in points, but it wouldn't be shocking to see the offense be run like about the same either. So yeah, definitely interesting there. Any other QBs here to talk through? Winston or Tyler Shuck? Let's go down here for the Superflex people and some of the people in more dire situations, because I actually think there's some guys in this tier of quarterbacks this week, tier 4. I think I have these guys in tier 4 and 5. I think actually all these guys are in tier 5 on the screen now. Bryce Young, I'm like irrationally excited for this Monday night football game because the 49ers offense will not be stopped. The Panthers will not stop the 49ers offense, especially in the run game. The Panthers are without their number one linebacker. That was like helped really turn around their run defense. We saw that last week. Bijan went for over 30 points. McCaffrey is not going to get stopped. And even if he does, like the rest of his offense, I just don't think is getting stopped with Purdy back. But Bryce Young is coming off, Samson, the best game of his career. I couldn't have been more off on whatever I said about Bryce Young in this live last week. Must have been extremely off base if we ever talked about him, because I expected the exact opposite. In a run funnel game, Bryce Young against a pretty good secondary goes for 448 yards, 3 TDs, finishes the QB2, 32 points. And now, Sams, he gets the 49ers, whose whole defense is hurt, and just allowed Brissett to throw for 450. So we got a career game. Now he gets like such a smash matchup in a game where they're going to be trailing. I'm pretty excited about the receivers in this game. In one of my deep leagues, 14-team league, I'm going with Leggett and Coker as a high floor play in my lineup. I don't hate it. I'm playing him. I think I'm playing them over Slayton, guys like Slayton and Michael Carter. I mean, I think it's reasonable. I think the receivers last week combined for like nearly 50 points for the Panthers. So yeah, Bryce Young stands out to me in this tier. I already mentioned Jameis Winston. I'm going with him in DFS. I think he could go over 40 pass attempts this week, and I just would not be surprised by that. Anyone else in this tier stand out to you? What do you think about those two guys? I know Shuck is in this too. I think I probably would go Winston over Shuck, but Bryce Young just cooked the Falcons, and Shuck actually looked pretty good in his last game.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Shuck, no one talked about it. It's the Saints, but he did look really good in that game before the bye. It was kind of like, what the heck was that? He just kind of played really well.
70% completion percentage, 10.4 yards per attempt, went for 19 fantasy points against the Panthers, who have been a better secondary than the Falcons now on the season after last week.
Yeah, and I think Shuck offers a little, obviously, more rushing than Jameis will. It's not going to be a ton, but it's going to be some. I do think Jameis could throw for like 300 in this game, like pretty easily. I've seen a lot of people like asking Slayton questions in the chat, and I just want to precaution. I just strongly want to precaution you. I still think Isaiah Hodgins is going to have a role in the offense, and I honestly think, like, personally, the eye test. I think Hodgins is better than Darius Slayton. Just the eye test. I've seen him for years on the Giants. I don't know. I just feel like he's going to be involved. They did a lot of media with him this week on YouTube, on their YouTube channel. I'm like, that kind of tells me like they like him. They want him to be more involved, and he's just sure-handed. And in a game where they're playing behind, I can see him being reliable.
I mean, if you're anywhere near right on that, you got to bench Slayton. I mean, he's like just a must bench. I think in that case, I already have him. I think as a bench. I think he's worth stashing still because the role was kind of intriguing before. But yeah, I mean, if Hodgins plays a role, Slayton will be droppable, after this week, I think. But it's also Slayton's first game back too. But yeah, Hodgins looked good last week. I mean, that's a huge call. I think I told you I got Hodgins into one DFS lineup. I'm definitely going to try to get Shaheed into a lineup after this live now too. I'm not quite going to be as minimum price as Hodgins.
Yeah.
Was. I don't think we were even sure if Hodgins was even available on the slate.
I did not think he was. I thought I was like, yeah, I think, and I literally said I don't think he's on there, but maybe he was. I guess.
Talk to me about Darnell Mooney. I think we both agree about the answer to this start that I have on screen. It's like pretty easily. Michael Wilson. We're not benching Michael Wilson. I don't think in like almost any spot. We have him right behind Devontae Adams and AJ Brown. Like that's where he ranks this week. And like starting him over those guys is tough. It could literally be considered. He had 15 catches for 185 yards last week, and now he's a pretty good matchup against the Jags. But I'm pretty in, Samps, on Darnell Mooney this week, and I feel like you might be a little more out based on some calls, some projections teams calls. This week we have Mooney. Sorry, I'm still in half PPR. Let me switch back to PPR. We have Mooney projected for 10.9 points. He's been under 10 every game this season. There's no Michael Penix. There's no Drake London in this game, and they're underdogs versus the Saints in New Orleans in this game too. Obviously, we're not starting over Michael Wilson, but do you have any faith in Mooney, or do you think he's a bench?
I think I have faith in him to an extent. I don't think I would be like super excited about him. I think that's where I was kind of making my arguments on the projections calls. Like, he just hasn't looked that good to me this year, and Kirk obviously looks terrible. So I do have Mooney in my FanDuel lineup just because of the price, but I'm not like super excited about it. I feel like the Saints defense is low key like okay, like they're not the worst thing in the world, and yeah, but Michael Wilson's going to put up Puka Nacua numbers. he is just that's his role now.
Yeah, I mean, this game is hard to ignore. You don't do what Michael Wilson did last week and not be like a start in fantasy.
Yeah.
It's not even like his floor was. I mean, we were in on him on the live last week. I've already seen multiple comments of people thanking us to get him to start Michael Wilson last week. I know tons of people with the WalterPicks app added Michael Wilson. We sent a push notification out immediately following the Marvin Harrison injury news. Put the push notifications on. If you have the WalterPicks app, it can be literally, this could be a league winning move, adding Michael Wilson here. I don't know if Marv is going to come back. I mean, maybe he comes back next week, and maybe he doesn't come back all season. Like, I feel like there's a really range of outcomes there, especially if the Cardinals keep losing games. Like, there's not going to be a reason to kind of bring him back. Next week against the Bucs is like another amazing matchup too if Marv is out. But yeah, definitely not benching Michael Wilson here. I think we both would agree Brock Purdy over Daniel Jones. I've seen some Kamara questions. Let me pull up the DK lineup. Yeah, I got you with that. Let me pull up the DK lineup, Sam. So I don't think you've been on the live when I walked through this. I'm going with the Jameis Winston, Wandale, and Theo Johnson stacks. And I'm bringing it back with two lines. I'm really going. I think if Winston gets to like 40 plus, even 45 plus pass attempts in this game, then like it makes sense to like really stack the game. Because that's what I'm playing here with Winston. I usually don't do a running back and receiver stack, in the opponent, like I am in this one. So a little bit different, honestly, than most of my DraftKings lineups. I'm going with Bijan and Saquon. I think Saquon is a really interesting play. That is like one of my big bets on the slate this week is that you want Saquon and not the passing attack for the Eagles. And I think there's going to be a ton of Hurts and Cowboy stacks out there that I'm sort of going against the grain on by playing Saquon and no one else in that game. The Browns defense feels super chalky. Like they're probably going to come in 33% or higher ownership, which is super high for a defense. They're like mid-priced though. They're 2,900 against the Raiders. I'm willing to eat the chalk since I'm going pretty. I think it's a pretty differentiated lineup with the Winston stack that I'm going with, and then I'm going Luther Burden just because I was so high on him in the NFL draft. He's guaranteed to be in the highest role of the season in a great matchup. I don't think I can live with myself to not have him in some DFS lineups this week. Any thoughts on this lineup? Anything you consider changing?
I like it. I like it a lot. I mean, not necessarily that I would change anything, but it's like a different tact is maybe go, just like Gibbs over Bijan and then switch Montgomery with someone else. Just like change it up if you do a different iteration of it. I just love Gibbs a lot as a stud for DFS. And yeah, I mean, I like this lineup a lot. I think it's if the Giants throw as many times as I thought they were going to throw last week in the win, it's going to be a good play. I think it's just a matter of you're going to need Theo or one of them to score. I think it's what you're really going to need.
I might make a lineup like this too if I have time after this live with Hodgins in there again because he's going to be under 1% owned, like 100% chance. There's like a real chance he's just playing ahead of Slayton. So yeah, I think that's also kind of interesting. Any other DraftKings stacks you're looking at today? These were my three favorite on the slate was Winston, Wandale, Montgomery. I like the Lamar Zay stack too, since those Jets receivers are all super underpriced. One of these Jets receivers, Samps, I haven't talked to this take since you've been on the live, but one of these Jets receivers is going to be a really good sleeper this week. Isaiah Williams, Adonai Mitchell, or John Mechie. John Mechie is the one I think I like the most. He's the one I'm riding with the free player prop. I think all of these guys are over 70% of the snaps. this week. Like they were the clear 3 receivers last week. Mechie led the receiver room actually in snaps last week, but they have a quarterback that might actually be able to complete passes. This week we haven't seen that all season. It feels like that's like not getting priced in anywhere. The one game we saw Tyrod Taylor play, he had 72% completion percentage. I mean, we have not seen that from the Jets all year, and they're going to be down in this game against the Ravens. I don't think the Ravens are getting stopped. And the Ravens also, the last piece here that has me kind of bullish on at least one of these receivers. Hard to guess which one. I'm guessing Mechie over the rest as like the safest floor one. But the Ravens play a ton of man coverage, and all 3 of these receivers over the course of their careers have been way better against man coverage than zone. These are not zone beaters, but they can beat man coverage. They're all pretty fast and like decent route runners. So, and they finally have someone who maybe can complete a pass. I don't know. I'm oddly high on the Jets receivers, and they're all pretty cheap on DFS too. If you go with the Lamar Zay stack, I think you go like Lamar Zay likely or Lamar Zay Andrews, and get one of these Jets receivers and be in a pretty unique spot there. And then I like Henderson in the Pats defense too. Any other stacks you're looking at for DFS or anything else you like on the DFS slate?
It's expensive, but like Derrick Henry and the Ravens defense, it's kind of contradicts what you just said a little bit, but I kind of feel like that's a pretty safe one to roll with. I mean, how does Derrick Henry not score a touchdown? And this one's interesting. I have it in my FanDuel lineup, and I feel interesting about it. I mean, it's a big contest, so I'm going to try to let it fly and see what happens. I feel like not a lot of people are going to have Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce in their lineup, and I have both of them. And I think it's pretty interesting because I don't think they're able to run the ball against the Colts.
Yeah.
So I think Kelsey's in for a good game and Rice in for a good game. I like both of them a lot in a game where they're going to have to throw. And so if you play one of those cheaper quarterbacks, you can afford it. Like it's totally gross and like you're probably going to hate it, but like it's not like the Raiders are that tough of a matchup. Shedeur Sanders is like so cheap, like insanely cheap. If he gets you 15 points, like you're probably in a good spot if the studs you chose are correct. You know what I mean? So, I mean, maybe that's crazy, but like, I know he was terrible, but they put out a report saying they're going to throw it deep. They're going to give him looks. And I think Kevin Stefanski's not dumb. He's going to work with Shedeur on how to set the O-line better. He's not going to be running for his life every play. They probably have to double team Max Crosby every single play. But I don't know. I mean, maybe it's ridiculous. Maybe Sanders is just terrible, which is probably going to happen. But I think there's an argument for it.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely
so cheap.
Very out on Shedeur. I feel like also I don't have the greatest grasp on everyone else's public perception around Shedeur, but I feel like there is still like a fan base that he has. Like I feel like his ownership would be maybe like oddly higher than it should be with how good he really is. But yeah, I just have no faith in Shedeur. I do think that game is like one of the ugliest games I think of the season between the Browns and the Raiders because I have no faith in the Raiders offense against the Browns defense, and I don't really have faith in Shedeur. I do think it's going to look better than last week, though. I will definitely agree with you on that. I mean, it couldn't really look worse than it looked, but he got thrown in halfway through the game. He wasn't expecting to play, and now he's a full week to prepare. So I think it is just a lot different, to be fair to him. I am excited to watch him play in a full game, just as an NFL fan. And I think we both agree that he wasn't a first-round QB talent, but we also, I think, both agreed around the NFL draft that he probably should have gone before where he got picked. Like he should have been a second or third round pick, I think is kind of where we landed, like before the NFL draft is what we thought. And that was like contrarian before the NFL draft. And then afterwards it was also contrarian for like the opposite direction. It's very odd, obviously, with how that shook out in the NFL draft. But I also wouldn't be shocked to see it go so bad that we see Bailey's.
Yeah, that's true.
Possible.
I feel like Seth says this a lot too, and he's kind of talked me into it over the weeks, but it's like teams, they don't have film on them yet. So oftentimes it's hard to play the right defense against someone like that. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm not super confident in him, but like if he gets you 15 points in your TFS lineup and you get all the studs right, I don't know. I feel like you could be in a good spot.
All right, let's hop back into some of these start sits now. Second flex spot, Pearsall or Monty. Walter says Monty. I'm already starting Gibbs. Yeah, just go Gibbs and Monty, man. It's such a high floor play to play these two running backs. And then Baker or Stafford in the Sunday night showdown. You agree with me about the Monty one, Samps, and then also Baker versus Stafford. I think I mean Stafford, but they both are in tier 1 for me. They're only 0.2 points apart, but I don't know how you bench Stafford right
now. I wish we had more easy questions like this one. It's Monty and Stafford, and I'm feeling easy about that answer.
This is a good one here. Two guys that I've pumped up a little bit on the live today as I think sleepers. Luther Burden is one of my sleepers this week. I will shout out. I have an official list of sleepers showing on the TikTok live. It's Jameis Winston, Tyrod Taylor, Bashal Tootin, Michael Carter, Luther Burden, Jalen Coker, Theo Johnson, and Isaiah Likely. Last week I did have Sean Tucker on that official sleeper list, and I actually did think about putting Xavier Worthy on there, but I'm not sure he really classifies in that true sleeper category like I'm going for. Man, this is a tough call for me. The matchup's definitely better for Luther Burden. Man, I would probably argue Burden gets more targets than Worthy this week in a better matchup. I mean, I've been arguing Burden over a bunch of guys we have projected just ahead of him. I think I lean Luther Burden. I still think Worthy's a sleeper, but the floor is kind of scary for him too, with how like you said, Kelsey and Rashid Rice, they're going to have big roles in this game too. He only had 3 targets each of his last 2 games. Man, which side would you go with here, Sams?
I think I would go with Xavier Worthy. It's not anything I say with strong conviction. It's just kind of like the game script I believe is likely to happen. And he gets a lot of manufactured touches. And I don't know. There's every week I have a few guys where I'm like, for some reason in my gut, I think they're going to score a touchdown, which is why I wish I could sports bet in Georgia. I think Xavier Worthy scores a touchdown today. I don't know why. I just kind of feel like he does. So I'm going to go with a little intuition on that. And hopefully that's good advice.
Seems like a pretty fair trade here. And yeah, I lean towards Burden there, but it's certainly a tough call. There's a world where this Bears game is a much different game script than the Chiefs had. There's no world where the Chiefs aren't like really leaning on Pats in this game.
Yeah.
There's almost no outcome of even if the Chiefs are winning. Like I just don't see a game script different than that. Whereas the Bears, they have been running the ball pretty effectively. The Steelers have been bad against the run at times this season. I'm going with Bryce Young over Trevor Lawrence this week. I just laid out the narrative of why I'm kind of irrationally excited for Monday Night Football this week. We got Bryce Young coming off his best game of his career, over 400 passing yards, and he gets a matchup against a team that just allowed 450 passing yards, Jacoby Brissett. And their whole defense is hurt, and their offense is cooking on all cylinders. Like I really want pieces of that game. So yeah, I'm okay going Bryce Young over Trevor Lawrence. Would you agree with that, Sam? So there's no Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter too for Lawrence.
Yeah, I would go with Bryce Young, ride the hot hand in a good matchup. I do think if he plays the full role, like that's a big if, but I do think Brenton Strange really does open up a ton for the offense, even if it's not Strange being the one who's producing. If Strange being back could honestly make Jacoby Myers a great play. I really do believe that. So I like starting Jacoby Myers this week. I think he's going to be consistent. Like he could get you 12 points, and I think that's okay. If he scores a touchdown, he gets you 20, right? So, I think Jacoby Myers is a good start because of that. So yeah, I would go Bryce Young, kind of pivoted to the different direction. But
yeah, no, I agree that Jacoby's an interesting one this week. I'm going Burden over DJ Moore this week. The prop lines for Burden are higher than DJ Moore. The vibes are higher for Burden than DJ Moore, and our projections are higher for Burden than DJ Moore. Every single checkbox in the category of DJ Moore for me over for Burden over DJ Moore. Is that how you answered this one too, Sam? Or would you go DJ Moore?
Yeah, I do remember being asked this question. I don't know what the username on TikTok was, but I do remember being asked this question. I believe I said Burden. And can't you just see Ben Johnson knows what he's doing? He knows all the hype for Burden right now. Can't you just see a trick play, flea flicker of some kind going down to Luther Burden, and then they cut to Mike Tomlin's face where he just looks dumbfounded? I can just see that happening. So I think I go Luther Burden. It's definitely a ceiling play over DJ Moore. DJ Moore just feels like I don't know, is he checked out? I don't know. I really don't know what's going on.
One catch last
week. He had a great game 2 weeks ago, and then he fell off the face of the planet.
Yeah, I'm going Luther Burden there too. Wandale or Adunze? This one's
is so tough. That is so tough.
Two guys that I assume we both want to start. We have this Wandale's ranked as wide receiver 20. I think we have Adunze. Yeah, wide receiver 17. So we have Adunze with a slight edge here over Wandale. It's a good matchup for Adunze too. I've been talking about the Luther Burden matchup as well. I don't think I could stomach starting Wandale over Adunze. I like Wandale too. I've got him in the DFS lineup. I think you got to go Adunze in this matchup.
I think when you have a really close call like this and they're similar matchups, I think you just go with the better player, and that's Rome Odunze. He has a more versatile route tree as well. Wandale's. It's funny. There's a stat that came out saying he's like number one in all these slot receiver metrics, but he's literally playing more slot receiver snaps than any other receiver, and it's not even close. It's kind of like what Drake May was saying in the press conference. He's like, "Oh, you're leading all QBs in all these stats," and he's like, "Well, I haven't had the bye week yet." Like it's kind of the same thing. It's like Wanda only plays in the slot, so of course he's going to lead all slot players. So I go Odunze.
That's why you got also you got to look at the per game numbers. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're not looking at per game numbers and you're looking at totals, it just is a way less optimal way to analyze things, especially when half the teams have had buys and half the teams haven't. Half the players have been out with injuries, half of them haven't. I think for fantasy, still, honestly, one of the very easy edges to get over your league is just look at the averages instead of the totals for everything. How about Jamar Bucky owner? Okay. Starting Judkins, Hendy, and Brown. No, I'm not benching anyone for Thornton. I assume you mean Tyquan Thornton here, not the Thornton on the Raiders, who's I think I saw his over under was half a catch in that Raiders game. And then Dortch, I'm out on Dortch this week too. There was 57 pass attempts last week. Was that an NFL record? There was some NFL record, right?
He broke the record for completions, 47. His jersey is now in Canton, Ohio, in the museum.
The NFL record for completions.
Yes, in a game, 47.
Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, so he broke the NFL record in completions. Honestly, even better for fantasy than breaking the NFL record in pass attempts. And Dortch had 6 for 66 and a touchdown in that game. He's not breaking for the NFL record for completions again in back-to-back games. And this only was an 11% target share, under 11% target share for Dortch. And the Jags, they've also been much better against slot receivers than outside receivers. And I mean, this is also a pretty clear Wandale type role here for Dortch, where he's only playing in the slot. See, I'm out on Dortch this week. I think he's really risky, really low floor. I think his over-unders at 3.5 catches. I honestly kind of like the under on that. So yeah, I'm out on Dortch, and all these 3 running backs too that you're asking about are all pretty strong. So I'm starting off them.
Yeah, the standard with return yards portion is that's the argument, and I'm like, okay, I guess, but yeah. I like the 3 guys you have in there this week pretty decently.
Yeah, and he has been a good return man.
Yeah, I just got a message from another member of our projections team. He said if you want to restart the app, the projections are now even more up to date for the inactive news. So just this is how quick, guys, we get these projections in. We're getting them in real time as soon as the news comes out. I mean, I don't know. I don't think ESPN and Sleeper are doing that as effectively. I could almost bet on it that they're not. So just put it out there. Download the WalterPicks app.
Matthew Golden is inactive. Oh my God, my 32 team is just down so incredibly bad.
Did you see that trade where the AC traded Jamar Chase basically for Sam Laporta and Josh Downs, and Sam Laporta's out for the season?
My God.
So now Niners also has Jamar Chase. Don't know if you saw that. If he makes the playoffs, it could be curtains for everyone else.
That's crazy. I gave him Josh Downs too.
Your guy, he's gone.
That's just ridiculous. Hey, Sam, should I start Pittman or Emmanuel Wilson?
Oof,
how do you feel about Emmanuel Wilson? Honestly, the more I think about it, the more uncertain I am with Emmanuel Wilson, just the matchup. The Vikings did just get reported they're without one of their starting edge players, which I actually don't know if that was expected or not.
Do you know which one it was?
Yeah, let me pull this up. Jonathan Greenard.
Oh, very good pass rusher. Very good pass rusher.
Yeah, so he's out. That's been the strength of the Vikings defense. There's no Josh Jacobs. Wilson's played 70% of the snaps, I believe, last week, with Jacobs sidelined for most of that game. Pittman's been balling, but he has a tough matchup versus the Chiefs. This is not a good matchup though for Emmanuel Wilson either.
Yeah, and Pittman's coming off a bad game also, and then the bye, so you really have a real stink on him. It's like, man. For me, I'm a strong believer in Brian Flores' defense and the way they play, and I feel like they're going to make – this game's going to be gross. I think that the Vikings could win this game, I think they have a decent chance just because of that defense and how the offense for the Packers has been really bad, honestly. I think in a big game for the Colts, I don't know what DB is going to be lined up on Pittman, but I'd go with Michael Pittman. I think he's got a higher ceiling. What's Emmanuel Wilson's ceiling? He scores twice. He gets you 18, 19 points. You know what I mean? It's kind of I don't know. That feels like a long shot to me.
Yeah, I'm okay going Pittman. I think here too. Definitely the ceiling is higher for Pittman. I agree honestly with this analysis here in the app. The floor is safer for Wilson because he's going to get minimum 13, 14 touches. Worst case, he could easily get to 20 touches in this game, whereas Pittman is a little bit more volatile, but does have that higher ceiling.
The fear with Wilson is if JJ McCarthy turns the ball over in their own territory a few times, which is certainly possible, then I don't know. I kind of feel like he's going to be not as bad, which isn't saying much, but
Pierre Strong. is going to be active, it looks like, for the Packers
Wow.
today. But yeah, Christopher Brooks will play too. It's not like Emmanuel Wilson's
Yeah.
percent of the snaps. He's probably going to be in the 60 to 70% range
Are
too.
we certain he's not better than Wilson? I mean, I think Brooks could be.
Yeah, it could be pretty tilting too if Brooks gets any goal line work, which is certainly possible as well. So yeah, I'm okay going Pittman over Wilson. I think there's a lower ceiling for Wilson and maybe a sketchier floor. Guys, please help. Yoshabas or Juwan Jennings. Yoshabas I've seen in a weird amount of starts today. I get it. I mean, I'm out here talking about John Mechie, so I get looking into Yoshabas here in week 12 with the buys and some of the injuries, but I got no faith in Yoshabas. I think his floor is near 0 points. T. Higgins is going to be the starting receiver, obviously the number one guy. He's probably going to get Gonzalez in this game, and so Yoshabas has the easier matchup too. But I mean, we've seen Flacco just lock in on the top targets. I think it's going to be a lot of Chase Brown and a lot of T. Higgins. Do you think I'm underrating him? He played 74% of the snaps here, and then Juwan Jennings. I can't decide between him and Pearsall. I think it's like really close between those two. I think Pearsall's role is probably going to grow. There's so many mouths to feed for the 49ers, but I trust Jennings just like a lot more. Yeah, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I don't think there's a world where Yoshabas gets 0. I think he's going to see targets in the game because I'm confident the Patriots are going to score a lot of points. I really like both the Patriots running backs in this game. I think that's a good strategy. I know Ramondre's just coming back, but I'd be surprised if he didn't get the goal line work back and just score a touchdown or two. And I mean, Yoshabas, I don't trust. I don't trust Juwan Jennings either because I don't know which one of him or Pearsall is going to get JC Horn. I don't know. So that's kind of, we saw that in the projections call. One receiver on whoever's going against the Panthers always struggles. It's just which one is it going to be?
Is going to be Juwan.
Yeah. So if that's the case, then I don't love that. And maybe go Yoshabas for that 10-point sort of situation. And I kind of feel like Mitchell Tinsley is going to score a touchdown for the Bengals, just deep threat guy. Like I can just see that happening with Gonzalez. Higgins on paper is like, oh, such a smash play. Like he's going to get all the work, but it's like, is he going to do what Drake London did? 3 contested touchdowns with Christian Gonzalez wrapped all over him. I don't know. I mean, he could. He's great. He's awesome. But is that going to happen? I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, as you talk through it more, I look at this snap percentage too. I think I was underrating him a little bit. I mean, the Bengals aren't going to be able to run against the Pats. No team has really been able to run against the Pats. The Pats are 7-point favorites. I agree with you. The Pats offense is not getting stopped in this game. And you look at Flacco's games, he's going to be at 40 attempts or more. And yeah, Gonzalez is going to be on T. Higgins. I mean, the ball is going to have to go somewhere. I mean, I agree. Tinsley's an interesting deep sleeper too. But yeah, I honestly think with the JC Horn stuff, I'm okay going Yoshabas, I think, now over Jennings as we talk through that one more.
Also, couldn't be a better week for my guy Kayshon Boutte to come back. I don't know. I hope he plays a full role. Man, I think this is the perfect spot for him. Like, I'm not going to say he's going to have a great game, but if there was ever a time for him to have one of his great games, is this one for sure.
Would you go Emmanuel Wilson or Genty? I know that's not the starts that I have pulled up here, but I saw that one in TikTok, and that's a tough call, man. I think I might go Emmanuel Wilson.
I'm going to go with Genty for the same reason I just said JJ McCarthy and Emmanuel Wilson, kind of the same thing. I feel like Shador's a higher version of that where he could turn it over in their own territory and Genty gets a touchdown. I would go with Genty, but that feels awful, especially after what Genty did last week and what was a good matchup.
Right. Yeah. I think I would go Emmanuel Wilson. Tough call there, though.
Brissett, that's really gross.
We're playing Brissett over Purdy with the QB combo we had before.
It's close call. I've mentioned that one a lot.
Sit one of these 5. Hall, Chase Brown, T. Higgins, Pittman, or Wilson. Yeah, you bench Wilson here.
Yeah, I agree.
Emmanuel Wilson, I think, in that spot.
I think Breece Hall can have a good game against the Ravens. Maybe it's a risky call. But...
This is a disgusting Week 12 start.
Oh, man.
Before we hop into this one, guys, shout out to every single one of you in this live right now. Seriously, we appreciate you all. If you have not already, you got to hit the like button on this live and hit subscribe. If you're watching live on YouTube, too, we're posting tons of content on the YouTube this season. We're going to have you guys covered for the final stretch of the fantasy season. We're doing at least 2 live streams a week, every Thursday night, every Sunday morning. This is year 5, week 12 of the Sunday morning lives. For me, seriously appreciate you guys all. And if you have not checked out the WalterPicks app yet, which is up on screen on the YouTube live, and you can't see it on the TikTok live, you got to download the app for the home stretch of the fantasy season. And if you're into player props, it's going to help you crush those as well. Now back to the regular programming here, Sam's. Chris Godwin or Jerry Jeudy. And Sam's, I mean, I called the one Jeudy game this season. And It's also, by the way, came against the Jets, I believe, in that game. Yeah, part of the reason I like that Zay Flowers stack too, for a lot of the same reasons I was in on Judy a couple weeks ago. Then he goes back to normal Judy stuff with 5 points last week. Nader's starting now, which, I mean, if you're believing they're going to throw it deep, maybe that is good for Judy. And then Godwin in his first game back is super risky. I think I actually might have both these guys. I didn't put Judy in the must bench category, but certainly we could consider him there. He projects worse than Godwin. I have Godwin as a must bench this week, though, in his first game back. Which way would you go here, Sam? So would you go scour the waiver wire for someone?
I think I'd look, but I think I'd go Jerry Jeudy. There's been a few different reports saying Chris Godwin's going to be on a pitch count. Like, he's not going to play a full snap. He's going to have a restricted role.
Yeah, with the injury story here, like the whole storyline from start to finish, timeline injury wise, with everything Godwin's gone through, like he's coming back a little earlier than expected. It seems like in a big game. I do not think you can start him in his first game back. But yeah, Judy versus Jalen Coker, Judy versus Xavier Legette. I think I'm going those two Panthers receivers over Judy personally. Gosh,
I don't trust Coker, and I think I trust Legette more than Coker. But I mean, Coker's had his best game of the season. It was 11 points, and it was like Bryce Young threw for 400 something yards. Like, I'd go Judy over those guys. I do like. It's been overblown on Twitter and all the like social media. Like, oh, Shedeur didn't have any first team reps, whatever. It's like, if you do practice with someone, you kind of learn their tendencies a bit more. So like, I do think Judy could see some good work in this game. It's just a matter of who's going to get the quick game from Shedeur. And I think Judy, Fannin, those guys are guys who can do that. So
yeah, Coker, I think I agree that I would probably take Legette over Coker. He did have more targets last week. I think he gets the better matchup against the 49ers too. Yeah. I don't have
They're
faith.
so different too.
I really don't want Judy, honestly. I think I'm still sticking with those Panthers receivers, but I'm okay going.
I don't want any of those guys, to be clear.
Over WalterPicks subscriber. Yeah, shout out to you, man, for doing the WalterPicks subscription. Best way you could possibly support me, support Sam, support the entire WalterPicks brand is trying out the WalterPicks subscription. It's also the best way to give you a leg up in fantasy and in props for the premium features that come with the subscription. Shout out to you, man, and everyone else who's tried out the WalterPicks subscription. Dak Prescott or Brock Purdy, WalterPicks shows a tie. Yeah, some of these start sits, man. The WalterPicks app really shows how tough of a call it really is. Yeah, we have these 0.2 points apart, pretty much a deadlock tie here. We haven't really talked, honestly, Sam, much about this Cowboys offense in this matchup against the Eagles, who I think the Eagles might be the best defense in the league. If it's not the Texans, like it might be the Eagles. The talent is just like starting to really show with a healthier Eagles defense, like we saw it stretches last season. You got Purdy versus the Panthers in a better matchup. But, I mean, Dax looks great. I mean, this offense has looked really good with Pickens and Lamb healthy. Which side would you go with here?
It really depends what you need. I think if you need the higher ceiling play, I think you go Dak, because I think in these division games that you can kind of throw some things out the window. And I mean, Dak has better receivers than Purdy does. I think there's no debating that. And the Niners could rely on CMC a ton in that game. I don't feel wonderful about it, but I think it really depends on the circumstances. I think I honestly like attacking that Cowboys-Eagles game, like you were saying with Saquon earlier. I personally think, just in spite of all the things he's been saying, I think A.J. Brown's going to get like hyper targeted in this game. Just kind of be like, all right, dude, like just here, take it. Just keep, I don't know if that's really going to happen, but it's kind of a feeling. So I love A.J. Brown this week. I think Dak is going to get the ball to CD and Pickens. There's no way he doesn't, because they won't be able to run. They will not be able to run with Javonte Williams. That's been one of my hardest takes on projections team all week, is that I don't like Javonte Williams. So maybe go Dak. The long-winded answer.
Yeah, the Javonte rushing under is honestly pretty interesting, because I also think the Eagles offense will do well in this game too, and it could be a really pass-heavy game script then for Dak. I lean Purdy personally over Dak, but yeah, super close call. And I think it's fair to argue the ceiling is higher for Dak than for Purdy. My biggest fear with Purdy is just McCaffrey's not going to get stopped. Like, run game's not going to get stopped versus the Panthers, and the pass volume just won't be high enough. But even if that happens, like, he could still throw 3 touchdowns in the game, like, somewhat easily. So I lean Purdy just slightly, but I'm also, again, irrationally excited, I think, for that Monday night game. make or break this week in a tough spot with injuries. Flacco versus Bryce. Yeah, I'm going Bryce, man. I'm going Bryce over Flacco with no Jamar Chase.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
I think it's Bryce there. Downs, Carter, or Yoshibas. Oh man, these are the starts that I was ready for, Sam's on the week 12 line. These are the starts that I have in my leagues too, and some of my 14 team like really competitive deep benches. Oh, man,
I'm curious what your thoughts are. I think I know what my answer is.
yeah, I'm not going Downs. I have Downs in the must bench category this week. I don't know how you could feel good starting Josh Downs at this point. He's in a slot specific role. He's not playing every snap. He's not the number 1 or number 2 or number 3 option in the offense. The ceiling is also just under 20 points. Like he doesn't really have a ceiling over 20 too. So it's like a floor play, but his floor is not even that good. So I'm out on Downs here. Michael Carter versus Yoshibas. I feel like you kind of talked me into Yoshibas, honestly, a little bit. I feel a little sick to my stomach starting Michael Carter. Like we haven't projected decently, and I am going to have to start him, I think, in at least one league. I think I have him in the 32 as well, which actually isn't terrible in that league. But, God, yeah, I'm going Yoshibas over Downs.
I agree. That's who I was going to say. So I'm glad we're on the same page.
We got Steven here saying he's subscribing if we respond. We're gonna fact check this one, Steven.
Yeah, we'll see.
Should I trade away Allen, King Henry, and JMO? I mean, off the rip, I say no with those three. Baker, Ted, Bijan. I mean, I like the 3 guys you're getting.
No.
I probably would take Bijan over Henry rest of the season. I'd probably take Ted over JMO rest of the season, but definitely a big downgrade at QB at the same time. Those are pretty lateral moves. I think it's fair, but yeah, I don't like giving up any of those 3 guys. I don't think those guys should be trying to trade away.
I think I don't know. JMO's been absolutely cooking. I've seen so many people trading him away. I'm like, look at the game log since they said they're going to get him more involved. It's been 16, 19, 18. Like he's just, and you think he's not going to do something against this Giants defense today?
Yeah. I also, for me, I'm only looking at the playoffs in a lot of my leagues at this point when I'm trading, especially unless I'm like really desperate to make it into the playoffs. And yeah, you have Jameson Williams. He gets the Steelers in week 16, the Rams. That matchup versus the Vikings isn't terrible either. He had 17 points versus the Vikings the first time. And then you look at King Henry, and I mean, like you look at his Derrick Henry splits in this time of year versus every other time of year when it starts to get cold and he gets into some of these snow games. He gets the Bengals twice, Sam's, in his next 4 games. I mean, that is just ridiculous scheduling. And he gets the Jets this week, which is a great matchup. Tough last 2 matchups for Derrick Henry, though, in the fantasy playoffs. I feel better about Bijan definitely than Derrick Henry in terms of like which guy's more likely to just straight up win leagues with the schedule that Bijan has rest of the season. He's got a couple of tough matchups too. That matchup versus the Rams is scary, but he catches enough passes. I think he's just a little less matchup dependent and game script dependent. But I know there's some concerns just about Kirk Cousins and sustaining offense for the Falcons too. Flacco or Winston? I'm going Winston here too. I'm playing Winston in DFS. I think Winston can get over 40 pass attempts this week. I mean, Flacco has a good chance at it too. Man, honestly, similar kind of matchups I feel like here too for the 2 guys. Would you go Winston or Flacco?
We're going to go with Jameis Winston. They're similar, and they play the same way. Just an easier matchup, I think, for Jameis.
JMO, Devontae Smith, or Flowers? Burden or Christian Watson? I'm going – man, let's answer this first one first.
What is that last question, by the way?
Jameis we're going Jameis. Super flex question. Burden or Christian Watson is honestly kind of close. JMO.
I think it's Christian Watson.
I think we have Devontae Smith ranked the highest here.
Most likely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you go Devontae Smith. There's an argument definitely for Jameson Williams here. I don't think there's an argument for Flowers, but it's close between these first 2.
Jameson Williams is the perfect player against the Giants defense. I really can't stress that enough. They have no DBs that'll be keeping up with him. If Paul Debo plays, I'd be shocked if he wasn't on Amon-Ra for most of the game. If he can do that. Devontae is just such a smash play. I was just talking about targeting that game. So is Zay Flowers. So this is a tough one. I would honestly love to know what the rest of this person's team looks like because I would be hard pressed to not play all those guys.
Yeah, I think I lean Devontae Smith. I wouldn't knock you for going Jameson in this start set. I don't think Zay Flowers is quite in the same tier as these other receivers, even though I do like Zay too. His chance for a touchdown is so much lower, I think, than these other two guys. He's one touchdown, Sam, since week 1. He has one end zone target this season. That came in week 1. I mean, he's just like he's not the guy in the red zone for this team. It really lowers his touchdown chances. He's got the 11th most yards per game among receivers. He's one touchdown. I mean, like just not a touchdown scorer. I think he has a good chance at a touchdown in this game, like with a big play, but he needs like a big play touchdown or he's just kind of not going to score. Let's go to
Zay likes to run backwards. I don't know if you ever watched Zay play. He loves to run backwards. He's running away from the end zone.
I know you said here, the Vikings, they're without that pass rusher that we mentioned, which is maybe kind of a big deal for Watson. Watson's really been coming on. And the Vikings have allowed one of the highest deep ball completion percentages in the NFL as well. It's been like one of the only weak points for the team. That's kind of exactly what Christian Watson does for the Packers. I think you said Christian Watson here, Sam. I still might make an argument for Luther Burden, but the projection is not so close here.
It feels like Burden, you're making if you're choosing Burden, you're making a speculative call that like the coach speak is right and it's going to work out in the matchup, which certainly could happen. Yeah. And on the Watson side, I didn't know that deep pass thing. That makes me even more in on Watson. It's just like he looked electric against the Giants, which isn't saying much, but he has deep playability. And I know Golden. Like, can they rely on Romeo Doubs? Maybe not really. Wicks is dealing with something. Musgrave has not been able to fill the hole at Kraft left, and they don't have Josh Jacobs. It's like, I think it's Christian Watson pretty confidently there.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close. Because I'm in on the speculation with Luther Burden. I'm in on being a really talented player. I'm in on the matchup, and I'm in on this being the biggest role of the season. If you're with me on those, I'm okay going Luther Burden here. But yeah, it's not like Watson's a bad option. He has been balling. I mean, he's been balling. There's really no around it. 20 points in his last game. That was against the Giants. It also points to Waymo Jamo. I feel like being, like you were just saying, in a really good spot here versus the Giants. But yeah, the target shares have been somewhat consistent, at least 4 targets in every game he's played so far this season. Jaden Reed's still not back. Jaden Reed's coming back soon, by the way, Sam. He's available in a ton of leagues. I think he's still the best receiver on the Packers when he comes back. Will be pretty interesting for fantasy, but these Packers receivers are always so tough for fantasy. Yeah, I mean, I think if this was me, I might go Luther Burden, but I'm okay. I'm okay saying Christian Watson too. I think it's definitely a tough call. Otten over Tyler Warren. This guy's saying, are we really going to do that? We have Warren one spot ahead of Otten, it looks like, actually, in the tight end ranks. This, I think, was updated this morning. We had Otten ahead. I updated these Otten projections, I think, a tiny bit this morning. But looking at the game logs in the matchup tab for Cade Otten, A.J. Barner had 10 catches for 70 yards. Last game against the Rams. The Rams defense is like really elite, except for against tight ends. Like, it's like their one weakness.
Yeah.
Looking at their matchup tab, and Cardio Cade, he's not going to take any snaps off, and the Bucs are going to be losing in this game. So like, there's kind of a good case for Cade Otten this week, but I'm not benching Tyler Warren.
I'd love to play both. I really would if I could. But I mean, you can't bench Tyler Warren. I think above all else, like, in a tough matchup for Daniel Jones, Warren's the guy you can rely on. Him and Jonathan Taylor are what's going to help Daniel Jones get through this game if they want to win. That's how I feel.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I'm going Warren over Otten too, but it's close. We have them both at 11.6 points projection. And Pittman, Montgomery, Flowers, Jalen Warren. I think you have to go Montgomery here personally. I feel like it's the two running backs based on our projections. I like Flowers this week too, though. I think the ceiling is highest for Flowers, maybe amongst all these guys. And I really want to start Montgomery. I think he scores. Well, I think Warren projects ahead of Montgomery, though, in our projection, Samps.
He should. I think he should. I think the safest path to go there is, I think, Montgomery and Warren. If you want to mix it up, I would probably go with if you go with Tyler, assuming this is the same team, you probably wouldn't want to do Pittman and Warren. So I would go, or Tyler Warren, sorry. So I would go with Jalen Warren and probably Zay against the Jets, hoping he gets like some volume in that game. But the safest one is Monty. And
yeah, I would agree with that. Start one, running back one flex, projected to lose. Like having that context.
Oh boy.
Pearsall, Wandale, Warren, Tootin. Appreciate the help as always, guys. I think it's these last two. I still think. These last two guys.
I think so.
Tootin has a high ceiling in this game against the Cardinals.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Especially if they get him the ball, they pass him the ball, it's over.
I've seen a weird amount of Alvin Kamara questions today,
True.
Sam. I talked about it when I looked at this matchup for the Saints before you hopped on. Like, I kind of get it. I kind of get the story behind Kamara this week. I'm not starting over Brees Hall in this specific start sit, but I feel like there's like way more start sits this week where like, yeah, maybe you do go Kamara over Bam Knight, over Tajay Spears, over Zach Charbonnet, over Bashaw Tootin. Nah, I don't think I'd do it over Tootin. But yeah, Kamara, like he had a huge role in his last game. They seem unwilling to give Devin Neal like this big role, even though he's the rookie. They can kind of see what they had. He's been washed. Like he's a 30-year-old washed running back, but he's like, if we take the name away for a second, take the Alvin Kamara name away for a second, we have a running back who had 25 opportunities in his last game in a matchup, a top 3 matchup. And he's favored. It seems favored. Like you probably want to start that guy most weeks. Then, you put the name on there. It's Alvin Kamara. He's 30 years old. He's having the least efficient season of his career. But man, like I feel like there is actually kind of a sneaky case for Kamara here in week 12. The Falcons have not been good versus running backs this season. He did have 14 points in his last game. Man, yeah, I don't know. I definitely wouldn't go him over Brees Hall, but are you kind of with me on Kamara, like maybe being sneaky this week?
Yeah, I've always loved Alvin Kamara just as like the fantasy guy, and it's maybe he can turn back the clock here in this matchup. Look at these next 4. Just saying. Look at the rest of the season. You scroll down there, look at even more green.
Yeah, Devin Neal, I think, is kind of an interesting stash, only for this reason too. But I mean, it seems like this is probably Kamara's last season in the NFL, and they have nothing to play for. They want to try to be competitive in these games. Still, they're just going to give Kamara a bunch of work in his last 6 games of his career. I could definitely see that just playing out, and maybe there is a couple big games left if that happens. And like I have faith in his offensive scheme. Like they've been able to scheme around really bad play this season. That's why they're favored at home here, because Chuck didn't look bad in his last game in a more difficult matchup. So yeah, kind of interesting here with Kamara. I'm not playing him over Brees again, but yeah, there's some spots I think you can feel okay about Kamara in the flex, or Kamara over like Michael Carter. I think I might go him over Carter, over Rashad White, over Bam Knight. Some of these guys immediately ahead of him.
100%. I think the next person you compare him to is Ramondre. Was maybe not.
Yeah, and Mondre's a tough one too. I haven't seen many Mondre questions. I saw a couple with Mondre and Henderson where they could start both, and I recommended that. I think I was recommending that just before you hopped on the live, actually. But yeah, I think Henderson still leads this backfield. I don't know how, with Mondre coming back from injuries, first game back, and how well Henderson's played. Like I don't know how the Pats don't give Henderson still a huge role, and it's obviously an amazing matchup versus the Bengals, but hard to know what Mondre's role is going to be. I expect him to still maybe be the primary goal line back on the team. So like he definitely still has some potential. I'm okay starting him if you really need to risk it. But please choose a flex. Alec Pierce, Tootin, or Pearsall. Pearsall is such a tough one for me this week, Sam's, because he played a lot last week. He had 1 catch, I think, for 0 yards. I don't think he's going to be matched up against JC Horn. I think they will get him more involved. I'm excited about the game environment. But suddenly all of the offense is healthy. Like the floor is really low. The volume potential is really low, I feel like, for all the pass catchers, not named Christian McCaffrey, every week. Alec Pierce is like the most underrated receiver maybe in the NFL. He's like really sneaky for fantasy too. He's like in a really good role. Sam, where do you think, if you haven't looked recently, since I pulled it up earlier in live, where do you think Alec Pierce ranks this season in terms of total air yards per game?
It's got to be top 3.
Yeah, he's number 2.
It's got to be top 3.
The only one that's ahead of him, Sam, is Malik Neighbors, who, he this is a per game.
He had
number.
1 game for like 50 points.
Yeah. So he's ahead of JSN, Mike Evans.
Wow.
The role that he's playing, the targets that he sees are so valuable, and he's so good at converting them. Like he is one of the best deep receivers in the NFL, like very underratedly. Match versus the Chiefs should be a pretty high scoring game. But yeah, I know we both like Tootin this week too. I do think I lean Tootin in this one. But I get Alec Pierce, I feel like he's tough for fantasy because every week I feel like yeah, he's underrated, but I can't get myself to start him. There's someone else that I like more.
Yeah, I think I would go Tootin also. But with Alec Pierce, having him on your team is kind of it's almost like, all right, I don't know what decision to make. Throw Pierce in there, he can get me 20. Or he could, but he could also get you 0. So it's I think I'd go Tootin safe for play, but I can definitely see Pierce stretching the field against the Chiefs 100%.
We got to help Carter out here, who's last in his league.
Oh no.
There's anything more motivating than trying to come first in your league and win the championship? It's avoiding last, Samps. I know so many leagues out there, some absolutely brutal last place punishments. And this is a critical time of year, too, for the last place race. You cannot come in last. You got to make the right starts this year to avoid last. And it seems like you have good enough players to potentially do that. But some tough starts I can imagine over the course of the season with some of these guys. Jamo, Adunze, Brees, and Genty. I think you bench Genty in this spot with these other good options. All these are good options. So you don't need to force Genty against the Browns, who have maybe the best run defense. They're a top 5 run defense. I'm really scared for the Raiders offense in this one. We already saw a game with historically low play volume against the Chiefs. There were 16 passing plays for the Raiders in that game. They ran like 20 plays in the game. I mean, we could really see something like that against the Browns too. I'd argue the Browns defense might be better than the Chiefs defense. Anyways, Jamo, Adunze versus Brees. You got to bench one of these guys. I don't really want to bench any of them. I think we probably both agree we're not benching Jamo. It's really Adunze versus Brees. I mean, I don't think I would bench Jameson Williams. Yeah, we have Jamo ahead of Adunze. Oh God, this is a tough call, Sams. Would you start both these receivers, or would you bench Adunze and play Brees?
I think I would go with both receivers. You're in last place. Go for the ceiling. I don't know what Hall's ceiling is against the Ravens. I really don't think it's very high unless he breaks 2 long screen passes or something like that. Adunze has a great matchup, and so does Jamo. So I go with both those guys.
Yeah, Brees is really interesting this week. The Jets have had 2 really tough matchups the last couple of weeks against the Browns and the Pats. 2 top 4 run defenses here. The last 2 games for Brees. He still hasn't done terrible. 20 points against the Browns. 8 point. I think that all came on one big catch. It was like all the receiving yards in that game.
Yeah, he had like 10 points on a screen pass.
And then he did have 8.4 versus the Pats. He was pretty efficient, honestly. 4.1 yards per carry is not bad versus the Patriots. That's above their average allowed. I want to just look at Isaiah Davis's role quick because it looked like Brees has played around 70% of snaps, which is pretty high. And only 2 carries and 1 target in the last couple of games for Davis. Man, now they get the Ravens, a better matchup, maybe a more sustainable offense with Terod. 2, I don't want to bench these receivers, but I honestly might go Jamo and Brees here over Adunze. I feel like the Bears do have also kind of a lot of mouths to feed. We've seen Adunze have donuts before. I mean, it's a good matchup. Man, I mean, look how boom bust he's been in the last month and a half. I'm okay going Brees and Jamo here. I think that's what I would do, but all 3 good options, and I definitely would bench Genty in this spot too. Okay, Matt Friedman, good to see you in the chat. We got choose 2 here: ETN, Kenneth Walker, Pittman, Christian Watson, Sean Tucker, also Juwan Johnson or Hawkinson. Let's jump to the tight end one quick first, because I have Hawkinson as a must bench this week. I don't know how you possibly feel good starting Hawkinson. He's like a borderline drop, I feel like, right now in fantasy. He's been under 10 points. Like, he doesn't have a big game all season. He's never really been like a touchdown scorer. I think it's Juwan easy. Even though the matchup for Juwan's not bad, the role should be pretty good for Juwan Johnson. Like, very sneaky, one of the better roles among tight ends. So that's how I would go there. Let's talk about this running back one, though, Sam. Which side would you go here with this choose 2? There's some running backs and receivers in here.
For me, I would go with ETN and Kenneth Walker pretty confidently. I think Kenneth Walker against the Titans feels. I mean, maybe Charbonnet steals his touchdowns, but he looked great last week. The glute injury isn't serious; he's fine, and Travis Etienne is in a good matchup as well. So I would go with those 2 guys. I trust them more than Pittman in this tough matchup.
Yeah, the floor is just way safer with the 2 running backs, and the projection's not that different. I'm okay going with the 2 running backs here too. I think if you really need a ceiling, then maybe go Pittman. But these running backs honestly have a pretty good ceiling too. I'm okay. I'm okay going with that one. We got some Purdy questions in here. Purdy or Stafford? Purdy or Brissett? Yeah, I'm going Stafford definitely over Purdy. I think we already had this one earlier. It's a tough call, Sam. So I'm leaning Brissett. I got to admit, like, looking at that matchup tab and what they did to the Chargers, the Jaguars defense, the Chargers in their last game has made me a little worried because I was so in on Herbert in that game. I don't want to get burned again by this Jaguars defense, but it's so hard to ignore that last game from Brissett. I mean, just at the NFL record for completions.
Yeah, I think Purdy's the safer go. Like, I don't think there's a role where he makes you lose your matchup against the Panthers.
Yeah.
And he can throw a bunch of screen passes to Christian McCaffrey where CMC does all the work. But that's also points for Brock Purdy.
Pretty safer. I agree. I think Brissett's ceiling's higher, pretty safer. I'm cool with that analysis. Yeah, if you want to play it safe, you want at least 15 guaranteed, you go Purdy. If you want the 25 plus, I think both guys can get you that. But yeah, Brissett, he just broke the NFL record in completion. So I don't hate him either. Wan'Dale, Aaron Jones, or Emmanuel Wilson, pick 2 all the way from Africa. This starts.
Wow.
Sam's. We got people tuning across the globe here for the Sunday
That's
morning.
Awesome.
I know we got some Australians in the chat as well, but a ridiculous time, I think, on their time zone here. Wan'Dale, Aaron Jones, or Emmanuel Wilson. Oh, God. Yeah, I want to start all 3 of these guys. This week we got Aaron Jones in the revenge game here, Sans, which I think this is like, some of the revenge games are real. Some of them aren't, like the McCaffrey one this week. Not really a guy looking for revenge necessarily against the Panthers, but Aaron Jones probably is looking for some legit revenge. This is not the first revenge game for him either against the Packers, but like I think he wanted to return to the Packers, and they didn't really want him when he ended up joining the Vikings. We have this in this order: Jones, Wilson, Wan'Dale. Would you go in this order too, or is there anything different you do here?
I would go with Jones and Wan'Dale personally. I'm trusting Aaron Jones is more talented than Emmanuel Wilson, and they're going to rely on him with McCarthy. And then Wan'Dale's just in a great game script in a secondary that doesn't really scare you with all their injuries.
I got another question in TikTok here. Zay Flowers versus Emmanuel Wilson. I think I'm okay going Zay there. Also,
I agree. I'd
have a really good option versus Emmanuel Wilson. Just go with the really good option rather than like a somewhat speculative, risky backup running back in a tough matchup. Thrust into, we think, a bigger role. Like we think. We know for Aaron Jones is in a workhorse role right now. Aaron Jones is a guy I've been trying to buy at trade deadlines too, with the schedule that he has down the stretch. And look at that playoff schedule, Sam. Commanders, Cowboys, Giants. They're trying to take some of the pressure off of JJ McCarthy, and they've been able to kind of effectively do that a bit with Aaron Jones. He also had 12 targets in his last 2 games. Hasn't had a huge game yet, but I could see it coming either against the Packers or in the fantasy playoffs. And yeah, I do like Wan'Dale a lot too against the Lions. He's in my DFS stack as well. Sean Tucker, Zay Flowers, or Pittman. Would you play Sean Tucker here? I think we benched Sean Tucker here. I think we're both on the same page. Really.
Yeah.
Oh God, this is an interesting one. JJ Bryce or Winston.
Definitely not going with 9. That's for sure. We're gonna go with Bryce, I think, in this one.
Yeah. I think I agree. I think it's Bryce, and I like Winston's ceiling, but yeah, it's Bryce. Bryce has a really high ceiling too. Hunter Henry or Cade Otton. We haven't talked about Hunter Henry at all, but he's got the best matchup for tight ends today against the Cincinnati Bengals. I think we both agreed Pats aren't really going to get stopped on offense. A part of that definitely will be Hunter Henry. I mean, the matchup tab against the Bengals for tight ends is like just a little ridiculous. Cade Otton, though, he's getting a matchup against the Rams, who it's also a good matchup for tight ends. They just allowed AJ Barner 10 catches for 70 yards. Look at these tight end numbers, Sam. The Bengals are allowing almost 7 catches for over 80 yards per game just to tight ends, over 1 touchdown per game just to tight ends. We've seen just massive games. Hawkinson had his best game of the season, 16 points. Laporta had one of his best games of the season, 20 points. Tucker Kraft was a top 10 tight end. Freiermuth, Jonnu, and Darnell Washington combined for over 40 points like just a few weeks ago. Colson Loveland had his best game by far, 30 points. That game was one big play at the end of that game. That was a ridiculous game. Mason Taylor was a top 10 tight end. Darnell Washington last week again looked like watching him stiff arm people is like one of the most entertaining things in football this season. Anyways, now you got Hunter Henry against the Bengals. Like hard to ignore the matchup here for him. But kind of an interesting DFS play too if you're going to do Drake May stacks. But I still think I'd go Cade Otton in that matchup, in that game environment too. It's a close call, honestly. I think Hunter Henry maybe deserves to be like a tier higher in these ranks. But yeah, would you go Hunter Henry here or would you go Cardio Cade?
I love Hunter Henry this week, but I would go Cade Otton over him just for the Patriots could win this game and Hunter Henry did nothing. Yeah, and it wasn't. But I also do think if you look back at Hunter Henry's best game of the season, I think it was like week 3 or something, that stat line is certainly within the range of outcomes in this game. So
Yeah, there's definitely a real ceiling for Hunter Henry. I have Hunter Henry in tier 5 and Otton in tier 4, so I do think there's a slight tier difference there. Chase Brown or George Pickens. I'm kind of nervous,
Wow.
Sam's, for Chase Brown this week. The thing that gives me hope or confidence is like he's not coming off the field. There's no P Ryan. Taj Brooks mixed in a tiny bit like last week, but he's not even in the full P Ryan role. I think it was like a 75% snap share for Chase Brown. Chase Brown's probably going to be top 5 in running back snap share again this week. The Pats, though, they have one of the best run defenses, but he has a big receiving role too, and there's no Jamar Chase. So I think he will like have 15, 20 touches, like has a good chance of 5 targets or in that range. Then you got Pickens, though, who's been absolutely smashing and is in a pretty good game environment. I'd say a little riskier, but yeah, I probably agree with this. The higher ceiling, higher bust probability. My mindset is always to go with the higher ceiling. That's always my default. So I'm okay going Pickens here. Pickens, Sam's, has been one of my best fantasy calls of the season, definitely up to this point. I mean, he was in the I think he was the number 1 target mentioned in the draft guide. I have him in so many best ball leagues, just carrying teams. He is wide receiver 6, Sam's, in points per game. He's averaging 19 points per game. He's the 3rd most yards per game among receivers in the NFL. And a lot of that came with Lamb out, but we've not seen him really slow down with Lamb back. I think I'd go Pickens here, but yeah, it's a close call for sure.
I think I agree. If you need the safer play, just go with Chase Brown, though. But I mean, I can't. What is that person's roster where they have to make that choice?
Yeah, that's a good sign that they've been listening to the lives in the app this season. Choose one at flex in PPR: Jacoby Myers, Ricky, DJ Moore. I assume that is, and Michael Wilson is Myers. It's Wilson.
Yeah, that's easy. That's an easy one.
Yeah, it was. If you'd removed Michael Wilson from this one, I think it's a lot closer. Would you go Jacoby Myers over Ricky Pearsall? I know you said you were kind of high on Myers.
I have both of them on the same team, and right now, hopefully, I get back to my lineups to make sure everything's set before before the games start. But right now, I have Pearsall in. But that, for me, if I have 2 guys that are close, I always like to try and get some excitement on Monday night if they're really close. Like, I'll just leave the guy from Monday, scare my opponent if it's close, and maybe give some excitement for myself. But that normally doesn't work out if the person on Sunday scores like 20. You're like, okay, well, that sucks. but I don't know. I think Pearsall can score 20 also.
Yeah. I think I'd lean Myers maybe over Pearsall. Hearing you talk about Myers a little bit on the live today, I feel like I might have said Pearsall before the live started. But Michael Wilson's like 2 or 3 tiers above all of those guys. We're not.
Yeah, he. I mean, he's like, you're talking about him or like Justin Jefferson, like genuinely. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm still holding out hope for Justin Jefferson though. That playoff schedule is unbelievable.
Yeah, I talked about that earlier too. I've been trying to buy the panic there as well. Jalen Warren, Montgomery, Judkins, or Michael Wilson. Nico and Mark's messed up with me. Messed me up with sevens. Judkins, Monty, Warren, Wilson. I think Wilson's number 1 amongst these 4 too, right?
I think given the circumstances, it sounds to me they need a ceiling play. I think you go with Michael Wilson there.
What about these running backs? Which running back would you choose if you had to choose one of these backs? Would you go Monty and Warren back to back in the ranks right now?
I'd go Warren against the Bears. I honestly think Warren and Gainwell are both going to be involved again. And the thing is, they both look great every time they play. I don't know what all the hate for Kenneth Gainwell is. Every time Gainwell's on the field, you're like, he's pretty good. Like he's making plays. So I would go Warren though.
Yeah, I think I agree. Warren over Monty it's close for me, but Warren should get more work in total than Monty, more receiving work too. But yeah, it's Michael Wilson over all these guys. I think regardless of situation, honestly, like you got to be starting Michael Wilson unless you have like a really elite option ahead of him. Another WalterPicks subscriber here. Shout out to all the WalterPicks subscribers. Shout out to everybody in this live right now. We're like 3.5 hours in to the Week 12 Sunday morning live. It's been a really fun one. Huge week here. We got to be making the right start hits. If you guys have not checked out the WalterPicks app yet, like this commenter has for many years, you're missing out, man. You are not giving yourself the best chance at a fantasy championship and the best chance to win your player props. So you got to check out the app for free on the App Store. Link is in the YouTube description or search for it on the App Store. Drake May or Lamar Jackson. These are the types of decisions the WalterPicks subscribers have to make, Sam's. And I think I literally said earlier in the live when I talked about the QB tiers, no one's going to have to decide about Lamar between any of these 3 QBs. But May was drafted pretty late in fantasy, so there are some rosters with May and Lamar on there. We got May ahead of Lamar in the projections here. I like Lamar this week, but yeah, I think you kind of have to go Drake May, right? in this spot? So let's start here, and then we can go to this next part of the question. We're talking to, by the way, Sam said he has a rule in fantasy.
Yes.
The rule is quite simple. It's you just do not bench Lamar in fantasy.
Pretty much. Yeah. And I don't think that changes. I don't. It's the Jets. Like, it's the Jets. Like, there's a world where the floor is low, but like, how likely is that world? I would go with Lamar Jackson. And because I mean, like, look at Drake May. The last 3 weeks, sneakily not that great. Just saying. So, I don't know. I'd go with Lamar, but I see, because the thing is, I think a lot of people say, oh, the Bengals will be competitive, but like, there's a very real world where they're not, and the Patriots just dominate, and May doesn't have to do that much. So
yeah, I think that's true in both these games, like both these spots.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ravens are even bigger favorites than the Pats. You look at the matchup tab here versus the Bengals. There's not a bad outing for a quarterback. I mean, last week Mason Rudolph and Rodgers, they combined for 18.4. Caleb went for 39. Justin Fields had 21. Rodgers had 25. Jordan Love had 16. Like, there's only like one game under 18 points like in the last couple of months. They're allowing 22 points per game to quarterbacks. They're allowing 2.2 passing touchdowns, 264 passing yards. But yeah, there's definitely a chance, I think, in all of these games down the stretch for the Pats, that they can lean on the run because they have such good run game environments here. I'm like just a little nervous about that. It's part of the reason I've kind of accepted Stafford's winning MVP. It's not going to be Drake May. But that's part of the rationale there too. I know we were looking at these game logs earlier too, and he hasn't had a game over 300 yards. The voters are going to hold him against that too. Hopefully this week he can break that, but they might not need to if the Bengals offense can't keep up. Then yeah, I mean, Lamar's not going under. He's not going under like 20 points this week. Both these guys are in such good spots. I mean, it's a win-win situation here. Man, yeah, I'm okay going with either one of these. I was going to say Drake May before like diving into some of these numbers. I still think I'd lean Drake May here, but you can't go wrong, honestly. I think both have really high floors. And then Henderson or Emeka Egbuka. I don't think my decision in this first one would impact this Egbuka versus Henderson decision personally. I could see you wanting to not start Henderson if you started May, for example, or vice versa. But I think he should have a decent receiving role. Still, I'm going Henderson. Yeah, I agree with this over Egbuka. I'm not benching Henderson, Sam. So like I don't think there's a start sit where I'm benching Henderson with what he's done the last two games and the matchup that he has, even with Mondre back. I don't think we can bench him.
Yeah, Mike Vrabel, I was going to read this, so it's a very good timing question. 9 minutes ago, he said that Travion is still going to run the ball. Ramondre, Terrell, they're all going to have a role. That's what this is about. No different than what we're doing at receiver. If one guy's doing well, then that's what is going to go. But we're going to use all these guys and try to get something out of them. To me, reading that is like Henderson's still the guy. Like, yeah. I don't know. Maybe you know what I mean? That's kind of what that sounds like to me.
What I'm saying too, like he can't not be after the last two games, especially it's Mondre's first game back. They're really not going to throw him into this like massive role. They want to, get him like some work, but like you can't throw a guy in their first game back. Like probably not. Especially, yeah. I mean, he's smashed the last two games. He's looked like the guy that they hope to draft in these last two games. It's his job to lose right now. Yeah, I think is basically what that quote validates, in my opinion. So yeah, we're not benching. We're not benching.
Don't love him pairing Ramondre with Terrell Jennings. Well, that makes me feel a little worse about Ramondre than I
did
that's
before. Fair too. The fact that he threw Terrell Jennings in there too is pretty ridiculous. Sean Tucker, Yoshabas, or Coker, or Hodgins. We got Hodgins in the start sits now, Sam. Thanks to you.
Let's go.
No other live stream out there is getting Isaiah Hodgins questions. Next to lose, love WalterPicks. Yeah, shout out to you guys. Shout out to everyone seriously for the positivity. We appreciate it. There's a lot of negativity too out there on social media where we spend way too much of our time during NFL season. So seriously appreciate it. Yeah, this one's a really interesting one, Sam. So I'm actually not sure which way you're going to go with this one. We have Sean Tucker. This is like the most realistic Sean Tucker answer I think we've gotten. I don't think we've said Sean Tucker in like any of these starts we've gotten so far. You've talked me into Yoshabas a little bit, and then Jalen Coker, I think you're like more out on maybe than I am. And we can't start Hodgins here, right? He's not actually.
The important context is this person's projected to lose, so we're not going to go with Hodgins. That's more of a safe play. Like you need like 8 to 10 points, maybe. Yeah. I think projected to lose. I think we go with Yoshivas or Coker just in those game scripts. I mean, is there a world where the Bucs win and Tucker gets a lot of touches? Maybe, but in LA, I really don't love the odds of that happening. Coker and Yoshivas are both going to be in games where they're probably going to be down, they're going to have to throw, and the matchup isn't too scary considering the other circumstances.
Yeah, you got to understand too with these boom bust probabilities. These are based on historical standard deviation. So using the median projection from this week and calculating based on historical standard deviations. So we've seen these massive games from Sean Tucker. So his boom probability is going to look high the rest of the season because we know now he's capable of that. So that's being factored in very heavily. Here, where we have not seen any boom games from Yoshivas or Coker, so their boom probabilities are really low. I think I would go Sean Tucker here, and I do kind of want to play Coker over Yoshivas too. I think it's okay to go Yoshivas, like Sam's. I'm sorry, to go Coker. I think like you were just arguing in that game environment. Do you say Yoshivas or Coker?
I said it's one of those two. I didn't make a decisive call. I think my decisive call is Yoshivas, but that's really because I don't trust Jalen Coker's the highest game of the season was 11 points, and it was when Bryce Young threw for 500 yards. Like,
yeah,
this
is a PPR league. It's not crazy to say the ceiling's higher for these other guys. I think I would go Sean Tucker though. Still in this spot, like this is a spot I'm okay risking it in the matchup.
Yeah, that's fair.
God, I think I like Coker more than Yoshivas. Hey,
Sam,
you
definitely like more than me.
Yeah, definitely. Need a safe play. Start Walker, Judkins, or Michael Wilson. Yeah,
that's pretty easy.
It's Wilson, but Judkins versus Walker. I mean, for a safe play, it's probably still Walker, right?
Yeah, he's going against the Titans. I feel like it's about as safe as it gets.
Yeah, I do feel like we're a little low on Judkins in the running back ranks for the potential role. Like, I feel like a lot of people interpreted the Sanders comment around how they're building the offense around him as like, oh, they're not going to build the offense around Judkins. It's like, no, they're going to have to lean on Judkins in this game. I mean,
that is how they're building around Sanders, by giving Judkins the ball.
Yeah, I feel like people interpret it as like, oh, they're going to be this pass-heavy like game script now, and they're not going to lean on Judkins. It's like, no, they're talking about the passing plays. Yeah, they're going to try to move him out of the pocket, but they're going to try to limit those plays literally as much as possible with Judkins. Like Judkins could easily get 20 carries in this game, and it wouldn't be surprising. But yeah, the matchup's better for Kenneth. 11.5 just feels low, given this sort of situation to me for Judkins. It's not a terrible matchup against the Raiders, but he doesn't catch passes. He's going to need to score. I'm not super confident that will happen, but yeah, I'm in on Kenneth. I think over Judkins, and we're playing Michael Wilson over basically every single person that anyone's asked so far today. We're going with Michael Wilson with a ridiculous amount of confidence. By the way, Sam's, Michael Wilson was in my top 5 most drafted receivers in best ball for almost no reason other than I was drafting a lot of Kyler Murray. I got into the right answer for the wrong reasons. Now all those teams have Kyler Murray on them, of course, but kind of huge for best ball to have the spike weeks that we just saw from Michael Wilson last week. Alec Pierce or Strange at flex? Would you risk it with Strange in a spot like this, Sams?
My question, my thought, my rebuttal is it that much of a risk in terms, like you figure, like I haven't heard anything saying Strange is going to be on a snap count. If he's not, the Cardinals are an awesome matchup. He, like you said, was leading the team in receiving before he got hurt, which is certainly notable. I think it's more of like, I kind of feel like Alec Pierce has got a higher ceiling against the Chiefs than I think Strange's range of outcomes really could be. I don't know. I think I go with Alec Pierce if you need like a higher ceiling play, but I don't think by any means Strange is like risky. I don't think he's like a 0, knock on wood, but what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going Alec Pierce here. I just prefer not to play him in his first game back from injury, but I'm also like, I just have so much exposure to him in best ball. I feel like I'm just like trying to lower my expectations for him a little bit.
Yeah.
I have enough sort of on him. I think it's a reasonable decision either way here, honestly. We did just see Kittle smash the Cardinals. That's George Kittle, of course, but he did score twice, had 6 catches, I think, for like 60 plus yards in that matchup. But yeah, I lean Alec Pierce here personally in a game that I do think the Chiefs are going to win. Again, I don't bet against the Chiefs in their playoff games very, very often. And this is a playoff game for them. So I don't hate the game environment for Pierce, even though the matchup's not good. Dobbs or Gainwell? First Dobbs question I've seen today, Sam's.
First Gainwell question I've seen.
Yeah, so this is a good one to talk through. I mentioned that deep deep attempt completion percentage thing against the Vikings. It certainly helps Dobbs as well. Probably Christian Watson even more. Gainwell actually projects kind of close in this one. I think I agree, though. I would go Dobbs here with Jalen Warren healthy, but Gainwell had 7 catches last week. There's been 2 games where Jalen Warren has missed time with injury, and both those games Gainwell was top 5. But he's going to be, Jalen Warren is active this week. We've seen Gainwell under 10 every other game where Jalen Warren didn't get hurt. So yeah, I'm going Dobbs.
I agree. I don't trust Gainwell enough.
WalterPicks App here. I need your help. I'm 6-5, a good 7-4 team. Should I start Washington or Watson?
Parker Washington? Yeah, Malik Washington's on bye.
Got to be Parker Washington. Yes, Watson.
I agree.
Yeah, I think you talked me out of Parker Washington. I think, especially with Christian Watson, the alternative there. Emmanuel Wilson, Sean Tucker, or Parker Washington. So you got to go Wilson in this spot, and then Sean Tucker versus Parker Washington. I'm going Sean Tucker. I think. Parker Washington.
I think if you say you have to go Emmanuel Wilson in this spot, I feel like you also have to go Sean Tucker. I view them very similarly. I view them very, very similarly. I don't know. I don't trust Parker Washington. I don't. I think he's a little bit risky these days.
Yeah, I think the difference between Wilson and Sean Tucker is Wilson's more likely to get catches. He could have 5 catches and it wouldn't be that crazy. Sean Tucker's there's not a game outcome here with 5 catches. He's just, that's not the role he plays. WalterPicks says JMO over Kenneth Walker. Start 2-1 running back. Yeah, I would go JMO again. Yeah, I would agree with this. Over Gentry.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Flex Wandale, Caleb or Lawrence. I think we both like Caleb more than Lawrence. Flex Wandale or Stevenson or Watson?
Wandale. I think it's Wandale.
I'm going Wandale over Watson too. Wandale over Stevenson. I'm okay. I'm okay playing it safe usually with these guys in their first game back, too, especially that comment we just saw. I mean, it's still a good matchup for Ramondre. I think he still has a good chance at the touchdown, but yeah, I'm okay going Wandale against the Lions. Shaheed or Burden at wide receiver 2. Yeah, these are the 2 sleeper plays from Samson and myself. Samps likes Rashid Shaheed, his chance at a big play today. I did mention also, I think Shaheed, this is a pretty good situation for him. This is the team that's worst against outside receivers, and this is one of the most efficient outside receivers in the NFL. But then you got Luther Burden, extremely talented wide receiver. He's the most efficient receiver for the Bears on a per route basis this season, and he should run the most routes of the season this week. So yeah, I'd lean Burden over Shaheed. I don't know how you feel in this spot, Sam. So I don't think we've answered this one specifically. I think you like both guys as sleepers. But yeah, which receiver would you go with here?
I'd go with Shaheed. I trust him more than Burden, even though he hasn't done a ton. I already liked Shaheed's odds before seeing how bad the Titans were against outside receivers. So I'm feeling good about that take. We'll see what happens. And then this other one is very interesting because I really like Colston Loveland this week. Again, it bit me last time. I said I wasn't worried about Cole Kmet. Should have been. But this is such a good spot. Such a good spot, man. Just too far in on the Bears. But I think the safer play is Tyrone Tracy.
Yeah, the ceiling's high for Loveland, for sure. This is a really good matchup for tight ends. And honestly, a little surprise, the sports books do not seem to be concerned about Cole Kmet at all. His line, I think still, I haven't checked since the live started this morning. Cole Kmet's receiving yard line on most books was 11.5. Sam's.
Yeah.
That's one catch. I mean, 2 catches.
Yeah, it is.
But he's playing over 70% of the snaps. I did take that one. I almost made that a free player prop, but it's just a little gross to go with the number 2 tight end for the props. That generally has not been a fun experience when betting on backup tight ends. But yeah, Loveland has a really, really high ceiling for sure. He's playing almost every snap. Yeah, I agree. Tracy's safer. Loveland has. I agree with this graph. I think exactly. Tracy's safer. Loveland does have a higher ceiling. Tracy's very unlikely to go 25 plus against the Lions.
Oh, I don't see a world where that happens. I don't know what it would take for that to happen. So, yeah.
Kamara or Kenneth Walker? Yeah, we're going Kenneth Walker, even though we both are kind of weirdly in on Kamara. I feel like based on what we were saying earlier, more than we have been all season. Again, if you remove the name, he had 25 running back with 25 touches in his last game, coming off his bye against a top 3 matchup, and he's a favorite at home. All these things sound really good. And then say, it's Alvin Kamara. He's 30 years old. He has his least efficient season. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of intriguing. I might honestly build the DFS lineup with Kamara in there before we get to kick off here. Defense rankings. Yeah, I haven't pulled the defense rankings up really at all. Let's talk through the defenses here, Sams. Quick, because this actually felt like, to me, outside of the Seahawks, who are an obvious smash, like kind of one of the trickier defensive weeks of the season. Like there was no like really obvious defenses to me in the defense rankings. I'll pull them up on screen here too. But yeah, the Seahawks, they're like the clear number one to me. I like the Browns a lot too. I mean,
I love the Browns defense.
I was really surprised how low priced they were. It's honestly a little annoying. I feel like their ownership's just going to be so high. But yeah, they had 17 points against the Ravens last week.
The Saints defense was really surprisingly low to me against Kirk Cousins and the Falcons offense. They're going to rank real low, most likely. But I feel like I disagree with that. I feel like they could have a good matchup.
We've seen a couple good games from them. You could go with the Kamara Saints stack. That'd be a very sneaky, probably pretty low.
I might talk myself into that. I'm going to need to change my lineup here in a second. I don't dislike that at all, but we're going to run out of time.
Saints are an interesting call for sure. Yeah, the Packers are interesting too.
I don't know if I trust the Lions. Can't you just see Jameis like kind of causing them trouble? Like I can just see that kind of.
I'm playing the Jameis stack in DFS. I'm with you on that. So yeah, Seahawks, Saints are a sleeper. I think the Pats are kind of interesting too. They're not available in most leagues. Good afternoon, fellas. Javonte or Emmanuel Wilson, full PPR. WalterPicks likes Williams. Thanks. Yeah, I think Sam, you were like really down on Javonte having success here versus the Eagles. You actually like talked me a little bit into considering his unders in this game because I'm also in on the Eagles offense. Like I think the game script will bode well for Javonte rushing unders. He actually did well in their week one matchup, but again, they lost their best defensive tackle before the game started.
Yeah, that was such a
pretty unique spot. He has been one of the best value picks of fantasy this season, though. Yeah, we have WalterPicks likes Williams over Emmanuel Wilson. I think I'd agree with that.
I am a little down on Javonte, but I would play him over Wilson. I think the Vikings defense is good. They're great, and I think who's more likely to be on the goal line more, the Cowboys or the Packers? I think it's the Cowboys.
Yeah, it's the Cowboys.
So I mean, their offense is like a little bit defense proof, little bit.
This is I think this could be a good one for us to end on here, Samps.
Okay.
Sean Tucker versus Alvin.
Wow.
Kamara. We have it projected pretty easily towards Sean Tucker here. This one came from the TikTok.
Are we in PPR?
Yeah, this is PPR league, and I feel like I've talked myself into Kamara here on this live.
You've talked me into Kamara.
Oh gosh.
So I'm changing my lineup. You said to remove the name. I'm like, no, I'm the reverse. Like I see Alvin Kamara with 25 touches. I'm in. Like let's get back to it, bro.
The only fear, the one thing, I mean, he was questionable, which is odd coming out of the bye. He is expected to suit up, ankle injury.
It's like a veteran rest day or something,
Yeah,
how it goes.
The only fear I have is like I do feel like as an organization, it makes a lot of sense to give Devin Neal more work. I know we were both kind of high on Devin Neal. He's like just not really in like a super legit role. I mean, he's playing like a third, half of snaps. Like if he's closer to this in this game, which he could be, like 50% of the snaps, 50% of the work, that makes me a lot less excited about the chance to get 25 touches to Kamara. But I mean, he still could get 20 touches even if Neal plays half the snaps.
I kind of subscribe to the idea that like it's kind of the same thing with like why are people saying, oh, why is Tyrod playing over Justin Fields? Like you want the other players to have more chances to succeed. I feel like if Kamara's on the field, Tyler Shuck has a better chance to succeed. Yeah. So I kind of think that's why he's going to be on the field more. As much as I love Devin Neal, he was probably one of my favorite running backs in this loaded class. I would love to see him have more opportunities. Yeah, I got to go make an Alvin Kamara lineup. I'm going in on Alvin Kamara here.
Sam's, any takes you didn't get off your chest before we wrap up here?
Let's see. Was there any? I'm looking at my list. I always have a list prepared, so let me take a look. I'll go with the other kicker. I like Cairo Santos against the Steelers. He's been tumultuous in the past, but he's been reliable for the Bears this season. And I think one of my things is a team going to get past the 50 a lot and not score touchdowns? That is the Bears against the Steelers to me all day long. 10 or more points in 3 of his last 4 games. I like Cairo Santos, kicker of the week. Let's go.
That's my kicker too. Some good kicker talk here before we wrap up. Just as a reminder, if you missed it, Zero concerning weather today. We got a bunch of games in
Let's go.
domes today. My 3 free player props, I'm digging deep on some of these. John Mechie, over 24.5 receiving yards. I like the alt lines for both Mechie and is it Isaiah Williams, I think was his full name. Yeah, Isaiah Williams. His alt lines too, over 25 yards, and Mechie's over 50. I think at least one of these is hitting against the Ravens. David Montgomery, anytime touchdown, and then Geno Smith under 29.5. Pass attempts, we are at 64% on the season. On these free player props, we're going to try to go 3 for 3 today.
I like those. I like all three, if that makes you feel any better.
That does make me feel definitely a little bit better. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Time is the most valuable thing we have. Sans, appreciate your time today as well. Good luck, everyone, and we will be back next Sunday.
Let's win our games, guys. Let's go.